All right, here we go. Welcome to the Deeper Dive presented by SuperDraft. Dave Lochran with me, as always. Adam Scher, 6 games today. A lot of big injury news. Also, an upsetting time in the DFS world. Josh Engelman and I discussed the passing of Kobe Bryant earlier today. I spent 2 hours on it yesterday during the SiriusXM Awesemo radio show. But Adam, I'm sure people are waiting your thoughts on it before we get started. So quick take on everything that's transpired over the last day, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's that much to say that hasn't already been said. Like it obviously sucks. It's crazy. Like for me, like I was talking to my dad about it. Like it's my generation's Michael Jordan, basically. Like it's I don't really know of another athlete that I can think of that would have the same impact or the same shock that the Kobe news did. For me personally. So yeah, it's obviously just really really sad for a lot of people in a lot of ways.
No question. We, however, are glad to have everybody with us today, and we will get started right now. But before we do, it's important that we talk quickly about our sponsor, SuperDraft. Now, I believe that Josh Engelman today with Spags during the live before lock. Josh, their lock is 7:30, right? So at 7, you guys are going to do a SuperDraft focused strategy heading up until that lock.
Correct. They actually moved that lock for us.
All right, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and they've been running some pretty great contests over there. Look, you're not going to get the same monster prize pools as like sites that have actually been established and around for a while. But as much as I hate the idea of trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to DFS, I'm all about what they have at SuperDraft. Unfortunately, in PA, I can't play, but mostly all of you other guys can. And they've got the $12,500 jump shot, $1,750 to first today. And the great thing about SuperDraft is they've got the multiplier, which is essentially instead of salaries, you have, as they like to say, complete lineup freedom. And you can play whichever guys you want, but they all have multipliers. So a guy like Harden would be 1x, Doncic would be 1x. So whatever they score, whatever fantasy production they score is what you get. Whereas somebody else, maybe a not as talented player, someone that doesn't produce the same type of numbers on a nightly basis. Let's go with, for example, Andrew Wiggins, 1.5x today. Dennis Schroeder, 155. Just to give you an idea off the top of my head. But yeah, that's how you do it. So you can play whoever, but you're working with multipliers instead of salaries. So if you want to get $20 in free super cash with your first deposit of $100 or more, so you deposit $100 or more, you get a free 20. Just sign up using the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO. When you do, that's SuperDraft. Download it in the App Store or go to superdraft.io. No limits, more winnings. SuperDraft. All right, man. You ready to jump into it?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Detroit and Cleveland. Let's kick it off here. The lone 7 p.m. game we've got on the slate. The Pistons, 7-point favorites here. 218.5 over under. Applied totals for both teams. 112.8 for the Pistons. 105.8 for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's go ahead and Josh Engelman, great. Now I have to sing a song for SuperDraft purposes now. Let's start it off with Andre Drummond, right? Because at the top of the player pool today, you have James Harden, who, there was word that he was doubtful and then upgraded to questionable. I guess he was never actually doubtful. No, I think he was. So he has been upgraded to questionable. I don't know where you're at on him, and this is not the same game, but the reason I mention this is because as far as the top priced guys go, you have Doncic, you have Harden, you don't have Westbrook, and then you have Towns, Levine, and basically Andre Drummond. All of them say on DraftKings above the 9,500 mark. So where does Drummond fall into the mix for you at the top tier of players?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a good spot for him against Cleveland. He's still relatively inexpensive. The price tag has come up a bit from his last game. And more often than not, you're still seeing close. You're basically full run for him, 34 plus minutes. I like the matchup with Thompson, just a smaller center. It should be a spot where Drummond can grab a lot of rebounds. Where it gets tough, though, is that I think it's a little difficult to prioritize him over Karl Anthony Towns for me. I like Towns a little bit more, but Drummond does still look good, and I'm assuming that Harden doesn't play since we did get the report within the last hour or so that it was unlikely he plays. So I'm assuming he doesn't play, and I would say that Drummond and Towns are pretty close, but Towns a little ahead of Drummond for me.
Okay, yeah, I have Towns ahead of Drummond as well. I like him quite a bit today. Do you have interest in Derrick Rose at his current price point? $7,800 on DraftKings is pretty pricey. I don't know how much meat is left on the bone there with that price. $7,800 on FanDuel as well.
I think that the salary itself is okay. He's still, his usage comes down a little bit when he's playing alongside Drummond, which he is as a starter now, but still playing around 32 minutes in competitive games. The thing that will keep me from getting too much exposure to him, though, is just the other guards around him. You have DeMar DeRozan playing without LaMarcus Aldridge. You have Donovan Mitchell going up against Houston. You have Jimmy Butler potentially playing again without Nunn and or Dragic. So there's a few guards priced around Derrick Rose that are missing or potentially missing key pieces of their offense, whereas Rose, that's not the case. So I think that it'll be tough for me to really get to him over that group of guys.
Where are you at on Reggie Jackson? I don't know about the minutes, but is it possible that he continues to see more minutes going forward?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I have him at 24 minutes here. He played, I think it was like a little over 23 last game. But the thing that really stands out is that on DraftKings, where it is pretty tough to come, that the pricing is tighter. There's plenty of value today anyway, but 4,300 for Reggie Jackson's a pretty fair price point. I have him in for a point per minute here and at 24 minutes. So I think he's an okay value. I wouldn't want to play him with Rose, I don't think.
God, Freddie Kitchens, the Cleveland Browns head coach.
Yeah.
Is now the Giants tight ends coach.
Seems
That's
like
rough.
Huge demotion.
That's a huge demotion, right? Wow. That's crazy. Not even like the OCs, the tight ends coach. Props to him for having the humility to take that job.
Yeah.
Shit. Anyway, what else on Cleveland or Detroit? Anything else you like here?
Nothing else really stands out. We mentioned Jackson and Rose as being, decent options that aren't, top of the list for me. And then Drummond, I think, is a really good option. But beyond that, the salary on Svi has come up. You have Bruce Brown back. Christian Wood's salary is up and Drummond is back. So there's nothing really else that looks appealing to me.
All right. So on the other side, you've got Kevin Porter going to be back in the lineup, or at least he's probable to play. They're starting to get some bodies back here. Josh and I had this discussion this morning, and we kind of settled on, and obviously we've gotten some news throughout the day, so things change, especially with Clint Capella. But when you're talking Colin Sexton and Darius Garland, number one, Garland's ownership was very high early on. And guys like Kevin Love, the one guy that kind of stood out to me, and I'll let you take over from here, was actually Tristan Thompson, because number one, ownership on Thompson, last I looked, was like 8 or 10%.
9 on DraftKings right now.
All right, right in the middle. Yeah, 9%. And someone like Darius Garland, different positions, but he's at 10. They're all pretty close to that. I think Kevin Love's a little bit higher, but yeah, at 12. Tristan Thompson's services should be needed here. He's averaging 35.5 minutes per game against Detroit through 3 meetings this season. They may or may not have played an overtime game. I think they did, but nevertheless, it's a spot where he's been needed with Andre Drummond out there. He's produced really well in this spot too. And like I say all the time, generally I don't like doing the DVP thing or the history against other teams. But when it comes to the center position, where I think things are a little bit more predictable, I'm willing to look into that a bit more. And Thompson at 5,700 on DraftKings, assuming he gets that 35 minutes that we've seen in competitive outings, I think is too cheap for him. $5,700 on FanDuel too. Where are you going with Cleveland today?
Yeah, I completely agree with you on Thompson. I think he's a really interesting play because he hasn't closed the last two games. We've gotten Larry Nance closing over him. Those games were against Washington and against Chicago, two teams that don't have imposing centers. With Washington, you're talking about Jan Mahinmi. With Chicago, you're talking about whatever combination of Luke Cornett, Cristiano Felicio, and Thad Young was out there. So he's not really needed there. But it's pretty difficult it's pretty hard to think that they're going to close this game if it's competitive with Larry Nance going up against Andre Drummond. I think it's a lot more likely that you see fourth quarter run for Tristan Thompson. The last time these two teams played, he got 40 minutes in regulation. That was a game where him and Drummond both played the entire second half. In previous games this year, you got 32 and 30 minutes from Thompson as well. The 30 was in a non-competitive game. So I think there's a really good chance that he gets back to the low to mid 30-minute range, and that he closes this game over Larry Nance. The ownership is down, the salary's down. It makes it a really, really appealing tournament option for me. Beyond him, not really that interested in the Cleveland side. I think that Kevin Love stands out on FanDuel. He's only 7,300. The power forward position is not very strong. I think he looks like a really good play there. On DraftKings, where there's a lot more position flexibility, not as interesting to me. I still think that the salary is okay, but he's really similar to Derrick Rose in that, I think it's okay, but there's just guys that I like more. Darius Garland at 4,800. I have him in for 34 minutes. The problem is just that there is good value on this slate, and he's not very productive. So I don't know how much of him I'll get to either. Thompson really stands out as the guy that I think I'll get to the most.
Yeah, no question. I think that's the spot where I am more than willing to get to. It's just too cheap of a price point on him. I know that he's been less than stellar lately, but in a spot like this, there's no question that it's a really favorable spot. Not to mention too, like you can't just run anyone out there against Andre Drummond. Understandably, Cleveland's not exactly playing for a lot, but it still looks like you're trying to make some right decisions in terms of rotations and what you're doing while Drummond is out there. So Thompson, my top guy as well. The problem elsewhere is just you get into the Colin Sexton at 6,700. You know, at a cheaper price point, I'm willing to get there. If you want to mention him at 6,100 on FanDuel, we can do that. But they also have some wildly underpriced players, which means even Sexton at 61 that looks good isn't nearly as good as it would be because so many players are underpriced, particularly coming from that Houston side in the event that Harden sits.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just a price point where for a scoring dependent player like Sexton, obviously you need him to be really efficient. And even then you need, a really big game to actually be happy you played him on this particular slate at that salary.
Let's talk about Miami and Orlando. We've got the Miami Heat coming into this one, 6-point favorites at home against the Magic. 209 totals, the lowest on the slate here. 107.5 implied for Miami, 101.5 for the Orlando Magic. Overall, it's a pretty unappealing game if you're looking at this game as a whole. We're still waiting on some news though. Butler, Nunn, Dragic, Adebayo is expected to play, but there's definitely a few question marks here from the Miami side. Let's start here. First of all, what's your read on who plays and who doesn't? And second of all, who do you like from Miami if anyone stands out to you?
Yes, I mean, the way I approached it now was just to assume the guys that didn't play last game don't play today. I don't have a strong read one way or the other on any of the three questionable guys, Butler, Dragic, or Nunn. Fortunately, this game is early enough that we should have the news before lock. But if they're all in, then I don't think there's a whole lot here that's appealing. If, Dragic and Nunn sit like they did last game, then I think Butler starts to look like a good option. He only played 29 minutes last game, but I would expect his normal 34, 35 minutes. Without them on the floor this year, he's averaged 1.33 DraftKings points per minute over 186 minutes. So that would be pretty appealing at his salary. It's obviously an unappealing game against a slow Orlando team that is good defensively. But I think that if both those guys are out, Butler looks good. If Butler's out, then obviously guys like Tyler Hero and whoever is in of Dragic and Nunn look good as well. Still really the biggest pieces of news that I think we're waiting on as far as truly questionable players.
I mean, Jimmy Butler was, I believe he left Friday's game twice, right? The first time.
Yeah, I think that's why he didn't close.
Yeah, the first time he left and came back. The second time he left and did not return. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the first one was like it wasn't the ankle. I'm pretty sure. Either way, I guess that's unimportant. But would you put him closer to active or closer to out?
I have him in for right now, but
Hard to say.
Yeah. I'm not too concerned about it because how early in the night the game is.
Yeah, Dion Waiters came in and closed that game out last time.
18 minutes for Dion Waiters.
I know, that's exciting. But yeah, I think we'll just pay closer attention to that news. Now it's a 7:30 lock. It's 7:00 for Detroit and Cleveland. And then the only 7:30 game is Miami, Orlando. So we should have news there. And then Josh and Chris Spags they'll certainly have that leading up to lock. Not to mention that if you hang around while they do the super draft stuff, they'll be able to hit that news and analysis for late swap sites as well, which should work out. Do you want to talk about anyone else from Miami?
I think it's worth mentioning the salaries on FanDuel, as you mentioned before, just really soft pricing there. But $4,300 on Tyler Hero compared to $5K on DraftKings, $3,800 on Duncan Robinson compared to $5,100 on DraftKings. If really any combination of Dragic, Butler, or none are out, those both are really good salaries.
So on the opposite side of this one, it's kind of ugly. I mean, Markelle Fultz, Evan Fournier, Khem Birch is super cheap, but and might start. But what do you really expect from somebody like him? For me, it's Vooch at a reasonable salary, despite a pretty difficult matchup. And then do we look at Aaron Gordon, just knowing that he could get his 35 minutes here? He is sub 6K on DraftKings. Look, overall, like I said, not a game that you feel great about. But he's 57 on FanDuel, 59 on DraftKings. And then, of course, Nikola Vucevic has just been a phenomenal player. He's finally getting those consistently big minutes. He's $8,300 on FanDuel, 86 on DraftKings. I'll say it one more time. Not a game, unless significant injuries break for Miami. It's not a game that I see myself having overwhelming amounts of, but I could see myself getting this some Vooch and maybe a little bit of Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much where I'm at as well. The problem I have with Vooch is that the center position is really good today. You have Towns and Drummond at the top, as we had already talked about, but then one of the best values on the slate, Jakob Poeltl's a center. You have Tristan Thompson, who we both like at center. It's just a really, really good position today, and that's not even mentioning like a Dwayne Dedmon or Rudy Gobert. So I think that it's tough to get to Vooch. He's kind of a guy where if I end at that salary, I'm fine with him because I think that he's a good player, but I would rather, if I can, or in a lot of lineups, I'm just going to be getting to Drummond and Towns for a little bit more money.
What about Rudy Gobert, who's not that much more money, is also in a very favorable spot?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of similar in that I'll probably just get more Drummond and Towns than either of them, but Gobert is certainly another guy that I think is really similar to Vooch and will help or will kind of keep my exposure to Vooch in check.
And do you want to get into anything else from Orlando?
You mentioned Aaron Gordon. I think that on FanDuel, that's a pretty appealing option because, again, the power forward position is just not very good today. So potentially getting 35, 36 minutes from Aaron Gordon, even in an unappealing matchup against Miami, is pretty nice at 5,700.
Okay. Let's keep it moving then. We got some good games coming up. Minnesota, and I'm monitoring, as I always do, the chat. Some interesting comments. Not anything we're going to get into quite yet, but always monitoring and seeing what's going on in there and see if there's anything worth bringing in to be a part of the show. Sometimes we get some pretty funny comments too, which are well worth talking about. Minnesota and Sacramento. You've got the Kings here on the road, 3-point dogs, 225.5 total, second highest on the slate. Only 6 games, but still second highest. 114.3 implied for Minnesota, 111.3 for the Sacramento Kings. Let's start with the Timberwolves. You and I kind of already teased this quite a bit, that Karl Anthony Towns is someone we like a good amount today. 10-3 on DraftKings just seems to be too cheap. 10-4 on FanDuel, also too cheap for somebody going up against the Sacramento team that is without Rashawn Holmes, is without Marvin Bagley. I mean, I'll pay Dwayne Dedmon his dues in the sense that if I'm Towns, I'd rather go up against Bielitsa. or Harry Giles, but Dedmon isn't exactly the epitome of a defensive stopper either. So I really do like Karl Anthony Towns today at this price point. I think it's too cheap, and he's looked more than fine since returning from that 1 month hiatus.
Yeah, I think he's too cheap as well. And the minutes are back. We saw 35 minutes 4 games ago. Then he was in foul trouble for a couple of games, got back to 35 minutes last game. For the season, he's averaged 1.52 DraftKings points per minute. The usage has been even higher since coming back from injury, which isn't something that I'm projecting going forward, but it's good to see that he's clearly not bothered at all by the injury that kept him out for a month. So I think just a really strong option here. As you said, Dwayne Dedmon is fine, but it's overall not a very scary front court for Towns to go up against. The Kings have been playing at a faster pace since De'Aaron Fox came back as well. So it's not the same really slow-paced Sacramento team that we were seeing earlier in the season. There's nothing really for me to dislike about Towns here at all.
Not at all. What about the rest of this team? Because outside of Towns for me, when you start talking about Jared Culver and Andrew Wiggins and Robert Covington, I am far less excited.
Yeah, same here. It's a team that overall hasn't been very appealing this year when everyone's healthy because Ryan Saunders runs such run so many players and you don't get a ton of minutes for anyone. Wiggins, I think, is still fine. He's obviously burned us a couple of times recently, but the salary is still affordable. I would still rather get to someone like a DeRozan or potentially Jimmy Butler, though. Beyond that, though, you got Jarrett Culver back in the starting lineup last game, played about 28 minutes. He's only 4,400 on DraftKings, which, if you wanted to take some shots there, it's fine, but nothing I'm too excited about. Shabazz Napier's salary jumped to 6,200 after his huge game last time out, so that's not very appealing. It's mostly just Towns for me.
Yeah, me too. On the other side, it's kind of interesting, and I definitely want to get into this a little bit with you. Josh and I discussed it earlier today, and it's kind of a tough spot to figure out, and that is Dwayne Dedmon, right? We'll get to Fox, we'll get to everybody else, but I actually want to start with Dwayne Dedmon here, and here's why. Last time Dwayne Dedmon played, I voiced some concern that his minutes would be down against the smaller front court without going up against Andre Drummond, where he played 31 minutes the day before. And on the surface, he did, right? On the surface, you'd say I was right, but I don't think I was. And here's why. He played 9:37 in the first quarter, 2 fouls, returns and plays 5:40 in the second quarter. He had 1 foul. He got 2 more fouls and did not play the remaining 3 minutes of the first half. So let's just say you've got about almost 10 minutes in the first half or in the first quarter, and then almost 6 in the second. So around 16 minutes, it looked like he was going to finish out that quarter. So he returns after playing 16 minutes in the first half. In the third quarter, Adam, he plays 3 minutes and 8 seconds. Boom, foul number 4. He's out. Okay. Now, after that, and oddly, De'Aaron Fox came out at the same time, but 3:08 got a 4th foul and he's out. Dwayne Dedmon returns. He sits out the entire third quarter, returns to start the fourth quarter, 16 seconds, boom, 5th foul, done, does not return. They go up by 17 points and hold on to that lead. So Dedmon finished with just shy of 19 minutes, but literally got in foul trouble on 3 separate occasions.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big point because it's obviously really easy to miss. I didn't notice it earlier in the day. I noticed it as I was going through games, leading up to the show. But we obviously we have our concerns about Dedmon just because of the way that that he's been used this year, and so it's pretty easy to look and say, oh man, he split minutes with Giles last game, and just looking at our projected ownership right now, we only have him at 4% on DraftKings.
Yep.
But I'm pretty encouraged even by the last game because, the game against Detroit, you got 31.1 minutes and he subbed out with a minute and a half to go. And then he played, if you take out the foul trouble, you're looking at a lot of first half minutes there, right around around 17 first half minutes if he hadn't gotten in foul trouble. So was still very, very clearly on pace to play 30 plus if he hadn't gotten in foul trouble. And then now you're going up against Karl Anthony Towns, which is a matchup where you would assume that they want Dedmon to play more anyway. So I think everything looks really good for Dedmon here. I'm a lot more encouraged on him now than I was earlier in the day.
Yeah. I mean, look, he played 6, he was on pace for almost 19 minutes in the first. Because he played 9.5 and 5:40, right? So that's like, let's just say 16, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like he subbed in with 8 minutes to go too. So like if he hadn't gotten those fouls, you assume he gets another 3 minutes to close the half as well.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying he was on pace to play 19 minutes
Oh,
in the
right,
first
yeah.
half, which is a crazy number. Now, neither you or I are crazy enough to project him for like 36 minutes, but I do think, like, okay, I asked Josh the same thing. How much? I think we both asked each other, oddly, how many minutes would Dedmon need for you to start getting him to pop up?
Well, like if I give him 30, he obviously looks really good.
Yeah.
If I even go to like 26, though, he's at 4,700 on DraftKings. I'm going to be getting there. So I think that's another really good point in that if he doesn't get in foul trouble, I think you get 30 plus minutes. But even if he does play a little bit less than that, you're still not in a bad spot.
Don Bernetti says Giles played great last game, and Walton has been going hot hand approach, trying to mix up lineups. Seeing Bogdan start over Buddy. Yeah, I mean, Hill's been terrible. I wouldn't be surprised to see more Giles tonight. Look, I'm not, and I'll speak for you. Neither of us are going to pretend that we know what Walton's front court rotations are going to look like. But what we do know is that Dedmon lost considerable minutes because of foul trouble last time. We can say that with certainty.
Right. Yeah. I don't see anything that makes me think Giles is stealing minutes from Dedmon.
It sure doesn't seem like it. Is it a little bit discomforting that Dedmon attempted one field goal in 19 minutes? Yeah, I mean, not great, but against Minnesota team that, how many times have we discussed this as well? And it's an important factor. They are a much less talented defensive team, a much less efficient defensive team when Karl Anthony Towns is on the floor. Now that they're much better offensively. So I think that the net result there is, I don't think there's like a significant change in terms of productivity overall. But when you look at Karl Anthony Towns on the floor this season, you look at what you say this, you take Minnesota over the last month defensively, they've played really well. But you also have to consider that Towns has only been back for a few games. So I'll throw it out there one more time. And then if you want to add anything well, we have more to talk about with the Kings, but check this out. Towns this season has when he's on the floor, this team has a 114.5 defensive rating, 114.5. When he's off the floor, 104. So huge difference there. When he's on the floor, 113 offensive rating. When he's off, 99. So, I mean, you look at the net result there, the net rating with him on the floor and off the floor. His defense has been terrible, but his offense has been great.
Yeah, and as far as Dedmon goes, I think the biggest concern for me, more so than anything having to do with Harry Giles, is that he has been less productive playing alongside De'Aaron Fox. He's only averaged about 0.62 DraftKings points per minute, but you're only talking about you're talking about less than 200 minutes there. And while the usage comes down, the big difference has been that the rebounding percentage is only at 12%. There's no real reason that I expect De'Aaron Fox being on the floor to just cut Dedmon's rebounding percentage by like 33%. So I still think that even though the usage comes down, I'm still not really concerned about Fox being out there either.
Top plays from Sacramento?
Dedmon, Fox, and then basically nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really see anything else. I guess I'll ask you about Bjelica at his price point, mid 6K on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you got Bjelica weighing in at 6,100.
Yeah, it's just not that appealing to me since he's not getting a lot of run at the 5, and this isn't a matchup where you would expect him to. If it were, a small team where I thought it was really likely that he got minutes there, then he becomes a lot more productive. But the usage goes down with Fox on the floor. The rebounding goes down, as long as he's playing alongside Dedmon. So I think with his price tag being where it is, he's not that interesting to me.
All right, 3 up, 3 to go. A couple things for you guys. First, though, if you haven't used the code Awesemo, or I'm sorry, Deeper Dive, one word, Deeper Dive, to get 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum subscription, do that by going to awesemo.com/join. Very simple process, but also one well worth checking out. Makes it so, you might be a little hesitant, and maybe you were burned by another site and you just don't feel comfortable diving back in. Well, it's a little bit easier in this sense because we make it so you know exactly what you're getting. Couple things. You scroll down to the bottom, you'll see videos on all of our best tools. and how to use them. Also, a ton of thoughts from other players that are Awesemo members. Legitimate, legitimate, not none of this doctored nonsense you see from other sites. Testimonials and screenshots, big time money coming in from a lot of our current subscribers. And also, look, if you use Deeper Dive, you get 50% off your first month or first week, but you can also get a express package starting as low as $3.95 a week. And if you click start membership at awesemo.com/join, we have, we'll ask you one question. What type of player are you? Serious, hobbyist, pro? And then we'll try and cater that subscription to you if you wanted to do a yearly, an annual, or a monthly. So head over to awesemo.com/join. And use the promo code Deeper Dive, one word, gets you 50% off your first week. And also, Adam, some people might not need to do that because we are giving away a free Awesemo Plus NBA monthly pass, value of $60. All you have to do is guess the player that scores the most fantasy points on tonight's NBA slate. Go to awesemo_com. Go to the Twitter handle, retweet, like, and reply. Simple, just follow the directions, right? I'm not going to waste any of our time because we got a lot of games to get to, but it's well worth it if you're not a sub yet. $60 value, Awesemo Plus NBA monthly pass. Go to awesemo_com on Twitter and follow the directions to get that free pass. Good luck to all of you who enter. All right.
They just postponed the Lakers-Clippers game tomorrow. Not that that's relevant for today, but
did they really?
Interesting news nonetheless.
Huh. It is interesting. I also thought it was crazy that at the Grammys, they just so happened to be taking place at the Staples Center last night.
That I'm sure it was pretty unfortunate for people in the area that, wanted to go there.
Yeah, it was, but I thought Alicia Keys, I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see it.
It was pretty cool. Like she did a pretty good job honoring it. She called it the house that Kobe built, which was also pretty cool. You want to get these three down?
Yeah.
OKC and Dallas. Can you use DraftKings Sportsbook? By the way, they're not a sponsor. I'm just asking you this question. Are you able to use that in Maryland?
No.
You're not?
No, I think like October of this year is the earliest that they can pass that.
So they do crazy like boost. They did an odds boost for the Sixers they gave you Sixers plus 76 at even money the other day, $50 max bet.
Yeah, I saw that. I joked that I was going to drive to Pennsylvania to see how unlucky I really am.
That'd be incredible if you must a plus 76. Anyway, I want to kick off this game with this. Don't worry, fellas. Everything I do has a purpose. They have an odds boost today on Luka Doncic, right? Triple double plus 580.
That's solid.
Seems like it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have him basically projected for a triple double. So,
so you'll take that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so too. Let's actually kick it off with the Dallas side because I'd imagine that we're not going to spend as much time on this side of the game. But look, Luka Doncic, top 3 in assists, top 3 in usage, or actually second in the league in assist rate, third in usage, leads all guards in rebound rate. The list goes on, right? Everything Luka Doncic does, he does well. And I know he's had a few tough games from beyond the arc recently, but a couple of them were also in pretty difficult spots. This isn't the easiest matchup for him, but first of all, it's egregious how he's priced at 10-9 on FanDuel. I don't understand that, but even 11-9 on DraftKings with the amount of value we have, how much do you think how much Luka do you see getting tonight?
Yeah, I think it should be pretty easy to get there. Obviously on FanDuel, it's really easy, but with the amount of value we have as far as just being, 3K value too, it's not like it's not like we're talking about guys that are like 4,400. Hartenstein's the minimum. Pirtle's close to the minimum. You have the backcourt for Houston as well. It should be really easy to get plenty of lineups where like you have Luka plus Towns or Luka plus Drummond. So I do expect to get a good amount. It's not a great matchup, like you said, because Oklahoma City is just a quality defensive team, and they're not particularly fast either. But this game does still have a 227 total, and Luka, of course, leads the team in usage, assists, and rebound percentage. Should play around 34 minutes, assuming a competitive game, and he's averaged, excluding bonuses, over 1.6 DraftKings points per minute this year. So all that looks really good for Luka. Pretty easy to get to him, as I said before. So I do expect to get a lot of Luka tonight.
Hey guys, Chris Paul is out.
Okay.
That has not been tweeted anywhere. It is on the NBA injury report as of 5:30 p.m. Out for personal reasons.
Okay. Well, that's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge. We'll get fortunately we're on that game. Thanks, Josh. Best producer in the business, huh, Adam? Not bad. Adam's not impressed, Josh. And he says, anyway, the spot for Luka, even if you are using the bonuses on DraftKings, because with Luka, I have no problem, honestly, factoring bonuses into him because he does lead the league in triple doubles, right? Like almost every game he's flirting with one. 1.78 DraftKings points per minute just by taking his per game DraftKings points and his minutes per game. So that's insane. I don't really have anything else from Dallas though tonight. Maybe you have something you like.
No, I don't. Dallas is a team that I haven't really gotten to much outside of Luka and Porzingis this year. I'm not really getting to Porzingis here either. The salary is expensive enough, and I don't love the matchup against OKC. So pretty much just Luka for me from the Dallas side. You also have Willie Cauley-Stein, who is expected to be activated and debut for Dallas tonight. Rick Carlisle said that they would ease him into things. So that's just another body in the rotation worth pointing out.
Here goes chat again, man. Some of them, they just hate them some Luka Doncic. Man. Kent Fiat says, Adam's laugh was comic book villain right there. Yeah, that was solid. That was like good comic book villain, except hold on. Let's see. All right, just wanted to make sure I was reading that correctly. I will not read that on the show. Do you think, assuming Paul, and I'm going to take Josh's word for it.
I mean, I pulled it up. It's there.
It's official? Okay. Yeah. Not assuming, with Paul being out, you think that helps Luka from a defensive standpoint?
Sure. I honestly have no idea. I would think, yes. I mean
I would think having Schroeder in
right.
There
you're getting more. Yeah, more minutes for Schroeder, obviously less minutes for Paul. So, it should. He's not someone, obviously, that I worry too much about the defensive matchup anyway, but it certainly shouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I'm just saying guarded by Chris Paul or guarded by Dennis Schroeder.
Well, I mean, he'll probably be guarded by, like, Dort.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not going to put Schroeder on him. I think they probably could have put Paul on him, though, if he played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like if Dort's not defending Luka, I don't know why he's in the NBA.
Yep. Fair point. I couldn't imagine Schroeder would be out there, but I do think overall defensively, not having Chris Paul on the floor doesn't help OKC. Let's talk about this Thunder side, unless there's anything else for the Mavs you want to touch on.
No, that's it for Dallas.
All right. So with Chris Paul out, and this is from the official NBA injury report, Josh, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay. So the official NBA injury report has Chris Paul out. That means that we are now looking at seeing a lot more Dennis Schroeder. It's funny because I already had some interest in Dennis Schroeder at a price point where he was coming in at virtually no ownership against Dallas and what was projected to be a competitive game. And I still think it'll be close enough. But let's just, if we pull up what we get with Chris Paul off the court this season, you've got Dennis Schroeder coming in with 1.05 fantasy or 1.15 fantasy points per minute, 30% usage and a 30% assist rate. Meanwhile, and then I'll throw this over to you, Gilgeous-Alexander, 25% usage, 1.03 DraftKings points per minute, and a 21% assist rate. Nothing else here really stands out that much. Gallinari's around 1.06. And it's pretty much what you're going to get here. I don't see Steven Adams seeing a huge boost, but there's no question that Schroeder really benefits in this specific spot, especially assuming that he should be in the starting lineup.
Yeah. Is this really the first game Paul's missed this year? Because I can't find any. I just kind of assumed he'd missed a couple.
Is it? I swear he was out. I swore he was out one game. Maybe not.
Yeah, say if he was, I can't find it. But yeah, I think that assuming Schroeder gets the start, it obviously helps to solidify his minutes. Probably gets, instead of 32 or 33, he gets up to 34 to 36.
You're right. He hasn't missed a single game.
Yeah, that's crazy. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously should play as many minutes as he can handle too. One big implication too is that, you mentioned the numbers without Chris Paul on the floor. I think that it's also important to note you should most likely get minutes now where Schroeder is out there without Gilgeous-Alexander or Paul, and the same goes for Gilgeous-Alexander, assuming that their minutes are staggered and that one of them is playing with the second unit. So Paul not being there kind of has that implication too, because if you just look at numbers without Paul on the floor, you're going to get the bulk of those minutes at Schroeder alongside Gilgeous-Alexander, whereas tonight you probably get some minutes where each of them is out there by themselves.
I think you have to get some minutes where each of them are out there by themselves. Right. It makes things very appealing. Now, I will say this much. I have no problem running. And look, this is new news to both of us, but I can't imagine I'm going to have any trouble running Schroeder and SGA out there in the same lineups at all.
Oh, not at all. No.
You have Gallinari. Outside of that, there's really nobody that's going to soak up considerable usage or even ball handling responsibilities. I think that makes things really interesting. I undoubtedly like this backcourt so much more than I did before. I had some interest in it. I know Josh was pretty high on SGA. I was with him too, with super low ownership. Ownership's going to come up quite a bit, but let me ask you this, because it's still fresh news, but in terms of like where these guys now rank for you in context of the entire slate, where would you put them?
Definitely, jumped a lot. I think that I'm kind of trying to update stuff on the fly, but 30.8% usage for Schroeder without Paul, 26.1 for Gilgeous-Alexander, and then probably increased minutes as well. So I think they both end up being guys that I have a lot of now.
Okay. Yeah, me too. All right. So anything else for OKC in the front court at the wing positions? Anything you want to get to?
Not really. You mentioned Gallinari. The usage for him should go up a bit. I think that he was a pretty decent option with or without Chris Paul. Not a huge difference for me since he's still not, facilitating. He's still not really creating for himself, but he's okay. And then Steven Adams, obviously, there are concerns over his minutes. He only played 23 last game. They had said that they were going to limit his playing time. And so I have him in for 27 here. The thing that keeps me from getting to Adams more than anything else is just that he's basically the same price point as Tristan Thompson. So if I am going there at center, I'm leaning towards Thompson.
Appreciate you guys supporting us every day too. Checking out the show and hanging with us in the morning, at night, up until lock. If you enjoy the show and you want to help support us, the easiest way to do so is just by clicking that thumbs up button. We really do appreciate that too. And it helps us out quite a bit. Subscribe, hit the notification bell as well if you haven't done that yet. So you always know when new shows are dropping next. Want to move on to Chicago and San Antonio?
Yeah.
All right. So we had big news drop this afternoon that LaMarcus Aldridge was not going to play. Now here's what we'll do. I'll turn it over to you, and we'll break that because Jakob Poeltl is clearly somebody that we're going to be spending some time on. But there's definitely a ripple effect, not just with a guy like Jakob Poeltl, but with DeMar DeRozan and such as well. So the only two games Aldridge has missed were on the 1st and 3rd of December. Let's go ahead and just take a look at what happened, what this team looks like when Aldridge is off, and who it affects the most.
Yeah, and so I think, going back and looking at those games, one thing that stands out is that the starting lineup was different than it is now. You were getting Trey Lyles off the bench, and Rudy Gay was starting. So I think, obviously, I think that Poeltl starts over Aldridge and becomes one of the top values on the slate. I'm expecting Lyles to start at the 4. I still only have him in for 20 minutes. I think he probably gets a handful of minutes backing up center, and then that Eubanks gets 10 to 12 minutes backing up Pirtle as well. Rudy Gay is really tough to project confidently because his playing time has been down so much recently, but I went ahead and gave him 22 minutes. I think that you could potentially see a little bit more. And at 3,500, that ends up being a pretty solid value as well. Guys like Lonnie Walker, Marco Bellinelli, potentially Damari Carroll could see a few extra minutes, but not enough to where they're getting in the lineups for me.
Okay. So who would your top options be from the Spurs here? Like I said, we'll start with them, even though they're the road team. And by the way, the Spurs in this game, since the news, are, let's see, 2-point dogs, 213.5 total in this game. So second lowest total. It's actually come down several points since it opened at 217.5. We're at 213.5 now. So that's pretty sizable drop. Spurs opened as 2-point favorites. Now they're 2-point dogs. Probably worth mentioning, but just prioritize your top options from the Spurs, and then we can move on to Chicago. But just want to make sure we cover everything, because on a 6-game slate, Aldridge, the news that he's out is really significant.
Yeah, the top two guys for me from San Antonio are DeRozan and Pirtle. DeRozan this year without Aldridge on the floor has averaged 1.22 DraftKings points per minute. With Aldridge on the floor, he's at 1.06. If you put DeJounte Murray on the floor, it kind of gets cut in half, and he's at 1.13 points per minute. But either way, you're talking about more or an uptick in per minute production, an uptick in usage. He has a 29.1% usage rate with Murray on the floor, 32% overall without Aldridge. And he's just not priced for that. So even though it's an unappealing game overall, I do think that DeRozan is underpriced. And then Pirtle obviously should play 28 to 30 minutes. He's averaged a little over 0.9 points per minute with DeRozan on the floor this year. So that comes out as a really good option. Rudy Gay and DeJounte Murray, both kind of secondary options for me, just because they are so cheap. I think that there's legitimate concerns with their playing time, but they're cheap enough where there's just more upside than downside.
Okay. All right. Well, the Bulls side, we've got to start with Thaddeus Young. And then we can get to Zach LaVine and the rest of these characters. But Thad, his price hasn't come up high enough yet to where it's like, I think we should just probably get away from him. You're still getting him at a relatively decent price point. Now, there has been a lot of news on this slate, whether it was last night or today, a lot of injuries that have made things different. But still, on DraftKings right now, you've got Thad Young coming in well above 15%. And then on FanDuel, I believe he's lower. Yeah, he's 12% at $5,500 on FanDuel. Let's start with Young, who's been trying to fill the void left by Lauri Markkanen, who was already not having a great season.
Yeah, Young is interesting here because he's still a good point per dollar value. He played 34 minutes last game. You got around 30 the first game that Markkanen missed. He's averaged 0.83 DraftKings points per minute alongside Zach LaVine this season. The usage rate does go down to about 17%, but he contributes, in other categories as well. The thing that is tough, though, is that there is so much good value that is significantly cheaper than him, even though he's not very expensive himself. And we have him projected, like you said, right now at 17% ownership on, or actually I hadn't refreshed. So we have him at 17% ownership on DraftKings, which is like top 10 to 15 on the slate. It's not a very appealing game in terms of pace. He's not a really productive player on a per minute basis. So I don't think I really will come in much higher than the field here. It's more of just someone that I don't mind getting in the lineups if he fits, but I think at his price point, there's not a ton of upside for him.
All right. Thanks for that super chat, Gannon. Much appreciated, man. He says, just got back from vacation, courtesy of FanDuel. Who's your guys' favorite punt play besides Hartenstein? Well, we'll get to that at the end of the show. We'll give you out our top options at the bottom of the player pool. Before that, though, Adam, Chicago outside of Thad Young, are you getting to a $9,800 Zach LaVine on DraftKings?
I don't think so. I think it'll be pretty tough. He's obviously great. He should play, 36 minutes. He's got a 34% usage rate over the last month and a 20% assist percentage to go along with it. The issue that I run into is just the price tag. It's a game where it has one of the lowest totals on the slate. And you're paying a premium for him. Whereas you have just in that price range across positions, you have Drummond and Towns, but then at guard, you have possibly Jimmy Butler, you have DeMar DeRozan, you have the OKC guys now that are a lot cheaper and playing without Chris Paul. It's really tough for me to prioritize LaVine.
Okay. It's really tough for me too as well. And like if you were to ask me who would I rather have in the utility, would I rather have Towns or LaVine? It's not really even close for me.
Yeah, and especially because it's not like we're getting him at 4 or 5% ownership right now. We have him at 14% on DraftKings, which to me,
high.
Yeah, to me, if he's going to be that popular, I would rather just hope he doesn't go for 60 fantasy points again.
Yeah, I mean, shit, Towns is only at 19%.
Right.
That's it's pretty significant. Just updated to see if we got an update. The last 40 minutes we did, and well, you know what? Let's go ahead and do this, Adam. Unless there's anything else for Chicago that you have, is there?
No.
Let's close this one out with Utah and Houston. And if you go to Awesemo.com, Awesemo's NBA projections and the SuperDraft projections are free tonight. So check them out, Awesemo.com. NBA projections and SuperDraft projections are free for anybody that isn't a premium sub. Utah at home against the Houston Rockets. So James Harden was switched from doubtful to questionable. Just yes or no, do you expect him to play?
No.
Okay, neither do I. But it's still odd because it's the only game at 9:00, and hopefully we don't get any unforeseen news that screws things up. Clint Capella also not expected to play. Russell Westbrook is out. So right now, the Houston Rockets are 13.5-point dogs on the road, 221.5 total. They have a 104 implied total today, second lowest on the slate, 117.5 for Utah. Let's take care of Utah first, so we give ourselves enough time to clear everything out of the way for Houston. I mentioned to you, I like Rudy Gobert. I don't have him as a priority option just because there is a lot at center, including value. But I think Rudy Gobert is a solid play here today. Outside of that, what are we doing with guys like Ingles and Bogdanovich and Donovan Mitchell and the like?
Yeah, so I'm with you on Gobert. I think he has a good game. I just have trouble getting to him because of how many centers are at various price points that I like. Mitchell and Bojan Bogdanovic, I think, look like the two best guys for me from Utah in terms of actually being able to get into my lineups. Mitchell's salary is affordable. He's $7,900. Bogdanovic stands out, especially where you have to roster forwards. Like on FanDuel, you have to roster two small forwards. Only $5,800 for Bogdanovic. His per minute production isn't great. He's at 0.88. DraftKings points per minute over the last month. But the thing that makes him appealing for me, especially in tournaments, is that he does have a usage rate up over 27%. And that's high for players, in his price range. So it at least gives him a little bit higher ceiling, gives him opportunities to do well, at least, even if his average production isn't great. And he is scoring dependent. But the salary is pretty nice for him at, only $5,800 on FanDuel, assuming you're going to get 32 to 33 minutes.
Comment in chat. Gobert's only going to play 24 minutes. This game will be over at halftime. I mean, if you take that mentality into every week's worth of or every day's worth of contest, in the end, it's not going to work out for you.
I mean, if you think Gobert's playing 24 minutes, you should probably be playing Tony Bradley.
That's a very good point. How much Bradley are you going to play?
0.
Okay. Houston, we got a few minutes here, and then we'll turn it over to Josh Ingeman and Chris Spags coming up with Live Before Lock. And be sure to stick around up through 7:30 too. They're going to be breaking down everything for that 7:30 draft on 7:30 lock on SuperDraft. So let's do it, man. Houston, Chris Clemens, Isaiah Hartenstein, Eric Gordon, Austin Rivers, Daniel House. It's a wild one, man. And I'm telling you right now, Eric Gordon is $6,900 on DraftKings. If you take, since the beginning of last season, if you take Harden, Westbrook, and Paul off the court, just using, Paul as a proxy and vice versa, Gordon is 1.38 fantasy points per minute. I think he plays huge minutes today. I might be on an island here, and it looks like based on ownership, I am. But and especially now with the Chris Paul news, I would imagine it's even more of a significant gap between him and other mid-range guards. I think Gordon's going to get big run, and having both of these guys off the floor, assuming Harden's out, is is actually very significant. So only 8% right now. We can get into all of these other guys as well. Who do you have? Let's start with the backcourt. We'll work our way to the front court with Capella doubtful.
Yeah, so I mean, starting with Gordon on FanDuel, he's obviously a great value. He's only
he's the best value on the slate.
Right. On DraftKings, they at least preemptively priced him up. I think he's priced where he should be. You mentioned over 1.3 DraftKings points per minute without those guys on the floor, which obviously is really appealing. He has a 34.8%.
Kendrick Nunn is out. Goran Dragic is active. Bam is active, and Butler's still questionable. Go ahead.
All right, cool. I think that 6,900 on DraftKings is about where he should be. At really low ownership, I think it is a good pivot off of the OKC guys if they get really popular, like you said, because the upside and the opportunity certainly will be there. If Houston hangs in this game, you have to assume that Gordon had a good game. The concern is just, it is a team with a 105 total. They're playing at Utah, which is a tough place to play. It's a good defensive team. It's not a fast team. So all that stuff, is working against him. I think that on DraftKings, he's okay. He's kind of just like a marginal play for me. Whereas on, FanDuel, he's still really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, FanDuel's not even a question. On DraftKings, I just think that when we get an update on ownership with Paul out, I wouldn't be surprised if Gordon's coming in around like 5%, which, give me a 30+% usage guy that could come in here. Like you said, if the game's going to stay competitive, he's going to have something to do with it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Gordon played 40 damn minutes in regulation. So, if ownership keeps dropping on him, I'll probably be on that. What are you doing with the rest of these guys and Clemens and Rivers and such?
Yeah, so I mean, I think Clemens, the range of outcomes for his minutes is pretty wide. The last time that Harden and Westbrook both missed, you got 34 minutes from Clemens, but Gordon only played about 22 minutes in that game. Rivers played 29. My best guess on Clemens is somewhere in the 22 to 24 minute range, which is still fine, I think, at 3K. He's averaged 1.3 DraftKings points per minute without those guys on the floor this year. He generally just goes out there and chucks up shots. So he is a productive player. I don't mind getting some of him. Austin Rivers, I hate, but he is really cheap. He's only 3,600 on DraftKings. He didn't get the price bump like Eric Gordon did. So I think he's a good point per dollar value. I would still prioritize guys like Hartenstein and Jakob Poeltl as far as values go over Rivers, but there's no reason you can't get, all three of those guys and then have, really good players everywhere else.
Okay. Quickly, because I want to ask you a final question. Anybody else for Houston that you like?
No, PJ Tucker should play minutes, but you don't get points for standing in the corner. So not really that appealing.
All right. Well, you could say the same for House too.
Yeah.
So number one, and then we'll get out of here. Toss it over to Live Before Like. Number one, favorite value play on the slate.
Gordon Hartenstein. Yeah, Hartenstein, Poeltl.
Okay. Yeah,
I would say on FanDuel Hartenstein because he's a power forward.
That's fair, but Gordon's a small forward.
That's true too.
Which is a super weak position. Yeah. And then last question. We had a question from one of our premium members in our Slack chat. He said, any groups you guys recommend for Houston guys? Close it out with this. It's a good question.
I'm going to only play one of the McLemore, Tucker, House group. You could set it at 2, I guess, but I don't think that's a really important one anyway because I'm just not going to get to a lot of those guys. As far as the backcourt goes, probably max 2 out of Gordon, Rivers, and Clemens, or at least max 3 out of Gordon, Rivers, Clemens, McLemore.
All right. Hey, that'll do it. Thanks for hanging out as always. Hit that thumbs up before you head out if you enjoy the show. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive presented by SuperDraft. Engelman, Spags coming up next, Live Before Lock.
All right, what's up, guys? It should be starting up now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Awesemo.com Live Before Lock Show. Got ourselves a 6-game slate today, one that we'll talk about because that's our jobs here, but still a little bit of sadness over the up in the air, which we'll talk about in a second. I'm Chris Spags, joined once again by my pal, my Monday buddy, the Chubster, Josh Engelman. How you doing, Josh?
Pretty good. It's a Monday. It's almost over. You know, whatever. It's fun slate. No Kendrick Nunn. Just constantly making changes. Nothing ever changes on that front.
Yeah, hopefully we do better than we did on Friday, where everything broke at the last minute. Seems like we got a lot of the key news we need to know out in the air. But let's do the plugs fast. Today, SuperDraft sponsoring the show, and actually we're doing a special deal thanks to the fine folks over at SuperDraft. We're going to be doing a special half-hour extra of the show today where we talk just about SuperDraft. It's a 7:30 p.m. Eastern time lock over at SuperDraft. So right now, it's smart for you to get in there, go to superdraft.io or download SuperDraft in the App Store. Use the promo code Awesemo to get yourself $20 free with a deposit of $100 or more. Again, we're going to do a special half-hour dedicated solely to this, so it won't be having the 7 o'clock game in there. We'll have everything else that we'll talk about on today's slate. We might even have more news by the time that slate starts up on SuperDraft. Go check them out right now. Sign up right now at superdraft.io. Use that promo code Awesemo for your $20 free. And also one other plug, I guess 2 other plugs. Our SuperDraft projections are free today for Awesemo.com, so go check them out. I think we have a link somewhere. Do you have to have that link handy by any chance?
I don't, but I'm confident that someone with the social media team will drop that bad boy.
I got it. I happen to have it open. It's in the YouTube chat right now. The projections for SuperDraft are free. Check them out. Again, it's a multiplier format on there. No salaries, just different multiplier amounts for every player. So you could roster any guy you want. If you want Towns, Drummond, any expensive player in your heart, you can get them on SuperDraft today. So check out those projections. And also, if you want to get all the data for every single day for the next 30 days, use the promo code LIV. In honor of Super Bowl 54, Super Bowl LIV, use the promo code LIV right now at awesemo.com/join. Get yourself 30 days for $54. It's all the data we have across every sport, PGA, NHL, NBA, NFL, for the Super Bowl, all the data you want. Every single tool we have on the site would be at your fingertips with that one. So use that promo code LIV right now at awesemo.com/join. All right, so I feel like we just need to talk real fast about this because I haven't had a chance to talk about it in a free-form way, but Kobe Bryant, if you aren't familiar for some reason, if you somehow missed it, did in fact pass away yesterday in a helicopter crash. His daughter as well, some teammates, a father, I think one of the coaches on the plane or on the helicopter rather. A lot of people unfortunately lost their lives in that crash. Kobe, very important player here. I'm in downtown Los Angeles. I've seen some of the monuments around here, some of the people leaving flowers, some of that stuff. It's just a very sad thing. And I feel like it's hard to kind of bring the energy we usually do to these shows just because he's such an important guy. I know you talked about it a little bit with Lofty this morning on the strategy show, but anything Kobe-wise you want to say before we go and talk about all of the things that we usually do?
I mean, at this point, I don't really have anything to add. It's just a bummer. It's not like I have anything terribly intriguing for anybody at this point. I talked about it a little bit on the strategy show. It's just sad. It's sad across the board. No Clippers Lakers tomorrow. That is being postponed. So yeah, look, it's going to be a rough couple days. That's going to be the news story for a week, and it's certainly not a fun or positive one.
Yeah, I just kind of a downer and one, I went out yesterday around Los Angeles, went to Smorgasburg, which is like a big outdoor thing, and just having to talk to people about Kobe and people wearing Kobe jerseys out there. And it's just, different being in LA, but across the country, across the globe, just a lot of people impacted by it. And certainly one of the most memorable players out there, and a guy who, for I think a lot of things, people have tweeted some negative things, some disparaging things that ended up being news stories about it, but worth reading about kind of his overall arc of a career, and the kind of man that he became and wanted to become for his daughter. So inspirational things, I think, to take regardless of how you view some of the controversies in his life. But just go read up on Kobe. See a lot of things out there. And obviously not something we're going to talk about relative to motivations today at much length. That's not something I think you want to bring up with DFS shows. But as we saw over the weekend, a lot of guys in the league are going to be playing tough. Trae Young went nuts in that game. Certainly a guy who was influenced by Kobe. DeMar DeRozan could barely play yesterday. He's on the slate tonight. Maybe he'll come out slinging, but not something that we want to talk about at much length because just kind of a downer, and we've got to focus in on the stuff we have to. I guess let's go into the slate. Clearly the news that we need the most right now is Houston's situation. I really not sure how to handle it, I guess, other than I find it to be compelling with Harden being out, that these guys are going to have a ton of usage going around on DraftKings and FanDuel. It is once again a tale of two cities. FanDuel's price for Eric Gordon, I think, makes him one of the best plays on the slate. His DraftKings price makes him a much tougher decision. Let's talk about him first. What are you doing for Eric Gordon on both sites and on FanDuel in particular?
He'll be in 80+% of my lineups on FanDuel. If it gets to 90+, I'm happy. I wouldn't be mad if he showed up in all 150. Just a no-brainer at 4,400. I can't imagine not wanting to have him, particularly at a position that is not great clear across the board. I'm not really interested in any small forwards to begin with. It makes it a lot easier to know that I have one that I like, twice as much at least more than any other small forward available. It's 4,400, so even in the worst case scenario, that lineup isn't dead if he plays poorly. I'll take my chances. He's without question the guy that I want the most on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think on FanDuel, the price is really tempting. The deeper dive guys just talked about it a lot of length, depending upon how you run your sample sizes between 1.3 and 1.4 fantasy points per minute. Going back to last year with no Harden, no Westbrook, and no Chris Paul on the floor, over 30% usage as well. Going to be a tough matchup. And on DraftKings, I guess the price there is a really different story. And I don't know if you're playing DraftKings today, but what would be your read on what you would handle with Gordon at 6,900 on DK?
I was getting like 15 to 20% of him on my last run. I haven't run anything since the Kendrick Nunn news. I assume that, where do we have him right now? Like 8 or something like that?
Yeah, he was under 10.
Yeah.
Let me see if that changed.
I assume that I'll be in the 20s.
Yeah.
I want to have him. I mean, he's going to run the team.
Yeah, I agree. Not certainly adverse conditions, not the spot where you want Eric Gordon priced up in a tough matchup at Utah as well, on the road at Utah. But still, I agree. I think he's worth getting, at least with the field. I'm above him as well. Not the most confident play in the world because of his price point. If he does fail, I think there's a very obvious way that he fails, and then the bench can be maybe a little more successful. That's how you see Chris Clemens maybe get some more work. A guy who people have talked about a lot today who's going to be owned. But I agree. Gordon seems worth the exposure on DraftKings and certainly worth a lot of exposure on FanDuel. What about the rest of the cheap guys here? You have Austin Rivers, who should be starting. Chris Clemens coming off the bench has been highly productive, about a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy this year with no Harden and no Westbrook, but still the minutes not the most secure in the world. Guys like PJ Tucker going to get a little boost in ownership. What are you going to? And Isaiah Hartenstein as well with a doubtful Clint Capella. A lot of guys here are going to be picking up ownership. Which are the ones you find to be must-haves? Which are the ones that you want to avoid more than the field?
I'm going to have a lot of Hartenstein, Rivers, and Clemens. I'm really high on Clemens, higher than it seems like the entire industry is at this point. But he's 3K. He's 3K, and that dude likes to shoot. I'm giving him 25 minutes right now just because I can't stop him from showing up in all of my lineups. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he plays like 33 minutes again like he did the last time all three guys were out. The problem is that when we normally get these sorts of guys that come into lineups, they're usually terrible. So you give 34 minutes to a guy that's like a 6.65 fantasy point guy. This guy's like a point per minute dude and loves shooting the ball. It's really scary. I really don't know what to do. I assume that he plays in this game no matter what. If there is a blowout, Chris Clemens is closing this game for Utah at point guard. I see no scenario where that's not the case. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he closes this game if they're winning, though.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. It's probably Rivers, McLemore, Gordon, House Tucker, or Tucker Hartenstein, like one of those two. I wouldn't expect him to be in the closing lineup of a close game, but there are very big opportunities for minutes.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think he's an interesting player, certainly at the minimum price. Like if he's 4K, I don't know that we're having this conversation at as much depth. I think maybe he's more of a conditional play. But I agree. I think it's hard for me to see him not get some degree of run and also just have a little bit easier time going against the Jazz bench unit. Guys like Tony Bradley in its center are going to make it a little bit weaker compared to going against Rudy Gobert. And he's been effective whenever he gets the run. So I agree. I like Clemens. I personally think I like Clemens more than Rivers, even though that feels kind of crazy because Rivers is a starter, has dual position eligibility on DraftKings. But I guess relative to the field, is DK ownership for Clemens is going to be about 30%. On FanDuel, I don't think he's anywhere near that.
13.
Yeah, so a much lower number on FanDuel. How do you feel relative to the field on both sides?
Oh, I'm going to be over the whatever he has on DraftKings that we're projecting. I really can't seem to stop that from happening, which is really unappealing. On FanDuel, I truly have no idea. There's so much value everywhere that I'm not sure that I get there. It's also possible that I end up with like 20% or so. I'm significantly less worried about it on FanDuel, where value is spread out through most of the positions. So it's not all that weird. DraftKings, obviously, there are no positions, essentially. So I'm just kind of jamming in a whole bundle of 3K guys, which is always a blast.
Yeah, no, it's certainly comes with some risk, but it does seem like these guys have to get minutes, and there's a variety of ways a guy like Clemens can earn minutes. But a guy who should be starting, I guess we kind of blew past Harkenstein, and he's going to be on the most recent run of ownership on DraftKings. He projects for 86% ownership, dual position eligibility there, so you can get to him. Unlike Jacob Poeltl, you wanted to get to a Towns Drummond lineup. You can do that with Harkenstein. You cannot do that with Poeltl. How are you feeling about Harkenstein on both the sites? He's a power forward on FanDuel. So you're not locked in by playing him at center. I guess how appealing is he to you? Because at minimum price, I think he's the guy I'm most with the field on and have a ton of. I found it really hard to not get him when optimizing.
Yeah, I'll be similar to the field on him. Hard to avoid. Just really, really safe spot. Expect him to play, mid-20s in minutes pretty easily. Hate that I have to do it, but it's happening nonetheless. He's really interesting at power forward on FanDuel, where he's 3,700, simply because there aren't any other like crazy pay down options. So he's going to become really interesting by default. I'm running my crunch right now. He is third out of 670 lineups on FanDuel in terms of exposure, and he is first on DraftKings. So I assume when I sort this out, I'm going to have like 90% of him on DK, and on FanDuel, I don't know, somewhere in the 30s to 40s.
Okay. Yeah. I have about 90% of him as well on DraftKings. It's hard for me to not go there at his price. And I just find it hard to believe he kills me, given the fact that somebody's got to play those minutes. We've seen Tyson Chandler not get a ton of minutes when Capella's been out in the past. Just really doesn't seem like he can do that anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, dual position eligibility, a guy who seems like he's got a steady allotment of minutes. I think Harkenstein, really the hardest one to fade for me out of all the Rockets on DraftKings.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Because Chris Clemens could just actually not play, and they play Austin Rivers and Ben McLemore 40 minutes apiece. Like, that could happen. They're weird like that. They'll play 6 guys and not care one bit. Hartenstein's going to play. Like, they just don't have enough bodies.
Yep. I think that's fair. Boy, very aggressive. Just saw somebody else muted somebody in chat who's really aggressive. Don't have to go. I understand people like to talk about my hair choices because I was wearing pigtails on Friday, wearing a man bun today. Gay slurs just seem unnecessary, especially if you're coming in hot. So sorry to that guy, but not me muting, but yeah, just keep that under control if you want to rip and bust. How about Austin Rivers? He's kind of the guy here, I guess, is the least appealing on paper for all of the people out there. In terms of ownership, going to be only 25% on DraftKings. And I think people have been burned by him enough, but he's seen big minutes in games where one of Westbrook or Harden has been out. Certainly has the opportunity to do more. The usage does go up above 20% with both guys off the court. How do you feel about Rivers? Is he just the least appealing for you, or does the fact that he's getting maybe less eyes on him make him more appealing in some respects?
I had 32 on my last go round on DK. I'm certainly going to be north of the field. On FanDuel, we're projecting him for 11. I am also going to be well north of that number. I just finished my FanDuel crunch, so I'm going to refresh that now so that I can actually speak about it. So let's see. Fresh. 37% Rivers, 29% Clemens. 92% Eric Gordon. That's all FanDuel. 78% Hartenstein.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's about what I would feel too on FanDuel. Yeah, Rivers, I think certainly has some appeal, and I think 25% ownership does seem fair for him. And it wouldn't be surprising if he were to succeed if Gordon were to fail, particularly on their DraftKings prices. I think that's still an appealing option to take Rivers and not take Gordon with where where both the salaries are. But yeah, I think he's kind of appropriately owned, and I'm not dying for him. And it's tough because I think Clemens is kind of the more fun new toy play where you kind of hope he gets the minutes. You hope he has the big monster day. We've seen him put up like 40 fantasy points in under 30 minutes before. But Rivers is the guy who's getting the run. And if that game stays close, I think that's where Rivers probably has more value. So if you're building a lineup that assumes Houston stays close, I think that probably starts with Rivers and Gordon, I would think, and Hartenstein too.
This is wildly unfun.
Yeah, it's an interesting slate with lots of fun things. And one other fun thing right now, I guess we should talk about fast in the premium Slack. People asking, how would you handle Jimmy Butler? Our boy News God, aka El Negro Loco. Now many pseudonyms for him going on, but always doing a good job. So how are you feeling about Jimmy Butler? He's questionable. Goran Dragic is in. Kendrick Nunn is out still. And Bam Adebayo also in. I didn't know that he was a risk not to play today, but all those guys are in. Butler's still questionable. How are you handling Butler on FanDuel? And I guess how would you feel about him on DraftKings as well?
I have him right now in at like 27% ownership, so slightly north of the field. I don't know if that's going to hold up in the next 40 minutes or so. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we get that information before we're locked. But as of right now, I'm treating him like he's in, and I'm playing him as if he's fine. And I have my DraftKings crunch done. I'm afraid to hit refresh.
Also, Alan Crabb ruled out today. So
okay, no crabs. I don't have crabs today.
Got to keep that in mind. All the important news finally coming out. Alan Crabb now no longer an option. So tough one there.
Well, I have 79% Chris Clemens on DraftKings, so that should go fantastic.
That would be a lot of Chris Clemens. So you'd be 3 times the field on Chris Clemens today. I guess that's a pretty big cosign on him.
I guess. I don't know. It's too high, but I'm having a lot of trouble making it not be that. So at some point in time, I need to just stop and realize that like I'm doing this because I'm uncomfortable and not because it's right.
I think you're right on DraftKings in particular. Like the pathway for him to have value, I think is there's multiple ways where it can happen, multiple contingencies where he can still get there and he can earn more minutes and close. And I think that's sort of where I feel about Chris Clemens. Certainly doesn't feel the most secure, but there are some very obvious pathways to him getting minutes today, assuming that James Harden will be out, which I guess has still not officially been confirmed, but everything seems to be blown that way. Another guy affected by LaMarcus Aldridge. I guess a couple guys being affected by LaMarcus Aldridge being out, but another value play who's going to be really highly owned on DraftKings is Jakob Poeltl. And Poeltl, I feel like we've had, I wouldn't say conflicting information, but different views on how it's going to be handled. Awesemo on his game plan live stream said that he felt like Poeltl might be a group thing of people assuming that he was going to get there. Adam, I saw in the deeper dive, was feeling that Poeltl's going to pick up the start, could be playing in the 20s to 30 minutes. I might be clouded by the fact that the day that Poeltl went off against Houston, it was a 2 OT game, ended up playing 41 minutes. I was very heavy on Poeltl that day, even before Aldridge was out. And then it turns out Aldridge was out, so he just went absolutely nuts in that spot. But Poeltl, what's your lean with him? Do you think he starts? Do you think he gets enough run? I know we talked about it a little bit, but where would you shake out with Poeltl, given that he's going to be 58% owned on DK?
Yeah, so I gave him 24 minutes, and that is giving me 8% Jake Poeltl. So I am wildly lower. I'm basically picking Clemens over Poeltl, and I'm not enthusiastic about that stance. I think that would be a safe way to describe it. He can play 30 minutes. Like, he's a very functional, perfectly reasonable option to go out there and play 30 minutes. I don't like the idea of having a 58% owned Spur because of just like, oh, the other center is out. I have no idea what Pop is going to do. They could play Trey Lyles at the 5 because it's the Bulls. It's the Bulls, right?
Mm-hmm. It is the Bulls.
Okay. Like, Metu could play 12 minutes. I don't even know if he's with the team, but they'd somehow fly him in or run him in through one of Elon Musk's tunnels or something like that. I can't be that confident in anything that the Spurs are going to do, basically ever. I've got a lot of DeMar DeRozan. He's just going to play no matter what. I'm confident in him being out there. I have no idea what to do with Jake Poeltl. So right now, I'm low. I would be even lower if I had Alex's projection for him. So let's just put that out there.
Yeah, I think he gets the minutes. And if he does get the minutes, I mean, this is one of the better center matchups in the league going against the Bulls. And now an even worse version of the Bulls with no Carter, with no Gafford in there. You have Cornette and you have Felicio picking up the minutes. And that's certainly for what Poeltl does. I mean, he can attack the boards. He's got a better rebound rate than Aldridge, and he can block some shots. And even if he doesn't get usage, which he didn't in that Houston game when he started, I think he had under 10% usage in that game, but just got there with rebounds and blocks. And, blocks not the most easy to replicate stat, but I don't know, just kind of an intriguing situation for me with Pirtle. I think the issue for me really on DraftKings is that I really like Drummond. I really like Towns, and it's very easy to afford Drummond and Towns today with all the value out there. So that's the one thing that pulls me away from him a bit. I am under the field on Pirtle right now, but I'm under the field, like I think 30% for him still feels like a lot of Pirtle, and I don't think in the field's going to be double that. I just don't want to get double that.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a tricky spot. He's good. Like, he is not going to hurt you if you have too much in that. Like, even if he plays 22 minutes, it's not like he's going to go out there and put up 6 fantasy points. Like, he's just going to get stats by default. But there are so many good centers today that it's easier to for me, I'd rather just get as many of like Towns, Gobert, Vooch, Thompson, Drummond. I want those guys to take up my center spots, or any spot that I can put someone like that.
So that definitely applies for your FanDuel stance then with Pirtle as well.
Yeah, I essentially don't have him.
Okay, got it. All right, yeah. So Pirtle, an intriguing play, certainly one. If we get the news that he's starting, which we probably will not get during the show, you would think. But he's still a guy who, if he's starting, I think the minutes get a little more secure, and there should still be minutes there. And I agree, he's just not going to kill you. At 3,200 on DraftKings, I just don't see how he murders your lineup. The issue for me is like if Drummond and Towns or some of the other guys that Josh mentioned, if they all go for 60, then you are in kind of a tough spot to dig out of, unless you went Luka's way or Fox and some other guys and they go nuts. But I think the path to least resistance is probably going Drummond and Towns, and that's a much safer play, a much higher upside play. But I think having Pirtle exposure, probably not 60%, but 30 to me, 25, somewhere in that range seems pretty fair. What about the other guys who are going to benefit here from no Aldridge being in the mix? Pirtle, we talked about getting center minutes, but guy who's taken a big boost this year and he's been pretty good in 2020 overall is DeMar DeRozan. Had some down games recently as Aldridge has gone nuts, but as of a week ago was doing 1.4 fantasy points per minute. And to start the year, playing a little more aggressively, playing a little more usage. Without Aldridge on the floor, he over the entire year has been a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy, been about a 32% usage rate. Is DeRozan a guy you're getting to more now that Aldridge is out?
He certainly is. DeRozan is my third most exposed guy on DraftKings right now, and my most exposed shooting guard on FanDuel. He's one of the guys that I'm taking the biggest stand on today, especially with Aldridge out.
Where relative to the field, where are you with DeRozan?
On FanDuel, I'm double. On DraftKings, I have 50, and we are projecting him at 20.
Yeah, I'm also double DeRozan on DraftKings, and I've been dying to play him. I've been playing him a lot, and it works out sometimes. He hasn't quite hit his ceiling yet. He's been efficient shooting the ball, but just been on the cusp of a triple-double in a lot of games, and I feel like Aldridge not being in the mix. Chicago, a down-paced team who's got better defense than people realize, but it does seem like if DeRozan's going to cash in on that triple-double, it said we wouldn't talk about it in much depth, but certainly a guy, an LA guy, who's been affected by some of the Kobe stuff, and you saw some of the clips probably yesterday with him and Kyle Lowry. Didn't even warm up before the game. He was very emotional. I really like DeRozan overall, like independent of all that stuff. Yeah. And just with no Aldridge on the floor, I think he's got a lot of upside in a game that should stay competitive. So I think DeRozan's a really strong play. Anybody else you see benefiting on the Spurs? I know you said you don't really want to get there. People talking in the chat right now about Rudy Gay. Maybe if Rudy Gay picks up the start, Patty Mills could open up some more use in the second group. Maybe guys, I don't know, like Bellinelli or Lonnie Walker, another minimum price guy, could get some more usage. Is there anybody here jumping out to you besides DeRozan?
Not really. I just don't know. Like, if you're going to do it, you need to do it and just draw your line in the sand. But everybody's line is going to be in a different place for the Spurs. There's no reason to suspect that Rudy Gay should play like 30 minutes or something like this because of what's going on. He was out of the rotation for a couple games. Like, he's barely a part of the team. Played 14 minutes in their most recent game, 9 before that, missed 3 before that. Trey Lyles could get the boost. Lonnie Walker could get the boost. Bellinelli could get the boost. They could dust Damari Carroll off if they're trying to trade him to just be like, hey, he's not, in casts or something like that. So Damari Carroll could play 12 minutes. Who the hell knows? I don't know what to do there. So I am not trying to immediately follow heavy chalk unless it's on guys who I know are not DeMar DeRozan is going to play 36 minutes, whether or not LaMarcus Aldridge was in or out. He's just going to shoot more now with LaMarcus Aldridge out. I don't have to look into that one too much for the Spurs. But if you're trying to pick through guys 4 through 10, ooh, wow. So there's some news for you.
Derrick Rose out. So, God damn.
You know what the problem is? This is my biggest fade today. I had no interest in him whatsoever. I don't even know if he's in my player pool. Yeah, I had 7%. We had him projected for 30. That's exactly where I wanted to be.
Well, all right. So how do we?
I had none on. I had 4% on DraftKings. That sucks. That truly sucks.
Why does this always happen on our shows? But yeah, Derrick Rose out. A guy, once I saw him on the injury report with a knee issue, even though they said he was probable, I was like, it's not good. Sore knee after playing. He played 37 minutes in that overtime game over the weekend on a back-to-back. It just seemed like a bad recipe here. Reggie Jackson can't pick up the full allotment of minutes. Bruce Brown's back in the mix. Do you have any read on how this affects things? They're going against Cleveland, and Cleveland certainly does suck.
About to take a peek at it now.
I don't even know how. Honestly, today is a day where SuperDraft I feel like would be more valuable. This isn't even a plug, because I want to play like 5 different point guards and 5 different centers. I can't do it with lineup constrictions on DraftKings.
Well, let's try to figure this one out. I guess that's where we're at. We need to hash out where Derrick Rose's 30 minutes are going. I mean, Tim Frazier is going to pick up a monstrous chunk of these minutes now. So I'd assume that Tim Frazier plays every minute that Reggie Jackson is not on the floor.
But didn't Langston's minutes get up that last game too, or that last game that they they had Rose and Jackson on Friday? I feel like, and I think Langston still played a good amount of minutes. I guess there was no Bruce Brown though.
Bruce Brown played on Saturday.
He played Saturday, but not Friday. And Langston played 35 on Friday. And 35 on Friday and 33 on Saturday.
Right. What's the question?
Wait, so like Frazier's not. I don't think is Frazier going to take that big of a jump, or did they just keep?
I'm not saying that he's going to be relevant. I'm just saying like he is going to soak up a chunk of point guard minutes now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Rose is leaving behind like 30 to 32.
Right. Like there's a lot to go around right now.
Oh boy.
You know, I mean, he also could just not do that, and they play 9 guys. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Reggie Jackson, how many minutes are you gonna play, you goon? 23. I can't go much higher than that.
Yeah, because I mean, 23 seems. I think that was where he was last game, and then he sat that back to back with like the injury. I think injury was what they called injury recovery plus a back issue. So, like, maybe he gets to 25, but he probably can't play any more than 25.
I can't imagine they want him to.
No, I mean, well, they don't for injury purposes. I'm sure, he's a guy they'd love to deal and have him have a nice little day here before he, at least have a shot at trade again.
Do we have any news on Tony Snell? Tony Snell also ruled out. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now I definitely think that Tim Frazier is playing some allotment of minutes. Unless they're like really fond of Lewis King or Jordan Bone.
Who isn't a fan of Jordan? I mean, Jordan Bone does soak up some usage sometimes when particularly when you're playing Derrick Rose and you're watching the game, and when all of a sudden you have to watch Derrick Rose cede 5 possessions to Jordan Bone. Those are particularly the times where he gets more minutes. But yeah, I still like Reggie. Even at his DK price point at 4,300, I think Reggie's kind of appealing because he's just going to shoot. He's had over 31% usage in the 2 games he's played. Just coming back.
Langston Galloway is going to get way too many minutes.
He is certainly going to get too many minutes.
All right, so I have 9 guys in the rotation and 15 minutes left to disperse in some way. Fun.
I honestly don't. I feel like just give it to Langston. I feel like that's always what they do anyway. Just give more minutes to Langston. I feel like
already got him at 32, so I'm going to give them to Jordan Bone because I don't have Lewis King in my model, and it doesn't really matter to me which one of those guys get it because I'm not playing either one of them. So if that's the case for the Pistons, we can actually talk about this now from what does it actually look like perspective. Is helpful. So if I switch to the Pistons, that line's going to come down a little bit. Still love Drummond. He's probably even more so involved in the team now. And then Bruce Brown is probably the only guy that I'm like really interested in. Reggie Jackson and Langston Galloway. There's an upside to playing Reggie Jackson that is in if he ends up playing extra minutes that I just don't expect him to play. He's not somebody that I'm really worried about getting a bunch of. If I can get a couple percentage points, I think that's fine. Just makes me a little nervous. But ultimately, I don't think that this is opening up as much as you would want it to for Detroit, because the rest of the guys that they're filling in with stink.
I mean, Bruce Brown's got pretty big upside, I think, and he's got dual position eligibility on DraftKings, so you could put him at a forward spot. I think that's that definitely appeals to me for him. And I was already kind of in on Reggie. Like, I think the minutes load isn't the best, and but he's been shooting. He's really been shooting. I mean, 31% usage in the one game, 38 in the other. With no Rose out there, I mean, it's hard to see him not maintaining that much usage, whether the shots fall or not. But they haven't fallen for him really in that last game against Memphis either that he played. Shot 4 for 13, still put up 30.75 fantasy points.
Reggie Jackson starting along with Thon McCurr at the 4.
Oh. He started against Memphis last time he played, so that's not the most surprising.
It's incredibly surprising.
Wait, that Reggie Jackson is starting?
No, that Thon McCurr is starting.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I was going to say, like, Reggie starting, not a surprise, given that he just did that. But yeah.
I didn't have Thon getting any minutes. I had him fully not playing today.
Yeah. I mean, he can't
fair,
play the
so
backup.
did Alex.
So, yeah.
So
anytime you can force Thon McCurr some minutes, you have to do it.
Oh my God, that is so... I don't understand.
One thing, Enmastai215 in the YouTube chat, Jackson used to get 30 minutes and barely do anything last year. That was also with Blake Griffin healthy for most of the year. I would not compare those analogies. And also Luke Kennard for a lot of that too.
He's also always like a fantasy point per minute guy. So whatever your memory is, it's not correct.
Yeah.
How many minutes does Thon McCurr play now?
I mean, what did we have Snell at?
0. I mean, 10, 20 technically speaking, but he was at 10 because he was questionable. I mean, here's the deal. I don't think it matters because you're probably not playing Sekou unless you think he plays 30 plus minutes. The real question is, how many minutes did you think Markieff Morris was going to play, and was he viable? Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. None of these guys are guys you're going to play. So I gave McCurr 14 minutes. I'm not playing him one way or the other. I'm not playing anybody on this team one way or the other unless it's Bruce Brown. I think that's the easiest way to just talk about it.
I am more willing to play Reggie. And actually, I'm willing to play Reggie.
That's fine too. Sorry, that's fine too.
Yeah.
He's he's a perfect GPP play because his minutes can be anything.
Yeah. Okay. That seems fair. Man, that's all right. Anything else news-wise? Danilo Gallinari is available to play, so we got that going for us. I guess we should talk about Chris Paul being out as well. Yeah. Personal reasons, probably some duties related to his NBA player association roles. But how are you feeling about the Thunder here? I think Dennis Schroeder to me is a lot more appealing just because of him getting more secure run. The deeper dive guys, again, Lofty and Adam talked about it at some length, but you're probably going to see more solo minutes as well for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as well as Dennis Schroeder, in addition to minutes together. But Schroeder to me at a cheaper price, I think a little more appealing. But how are you feeling about the Thunder with no Chris Paul? Does anybody take a bump up for you?
I like Schroeder and SGA pretty much equally. I have Schroeder 6th and SGA ranked 7th on DraftKings. I just want to have both of those dudes. I don't really have a preference between the two. It's sort of just if you have the money, go to SGA. If you need the money, go to Schroeder. But I like them both quite a bit.
Okay. Damn. All right.
Guess I'm running another crunch. I don't think that the worst is over yet. I think that Jimmy Butler bomb is gonna drop.
Yeah, because that would probably make Goran Dragic another value-ish guy who has massive upside.
Tyler Hero as well would become something.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you did a good job for us on Friday when you were very much bullish on Tyler Hero. Is it Hero or Hero? I feel like I vacillate back and forth.
I'd rather say Hero.
I would rather say Hero, but I feel like it's Hero, and it just throws me for a loop every time.
I just feel like I'm doing a bad accent if I say Hero.
It's true. It does feel a little problematic, perhaps, in 2020. Hofbrow saying, God, I love Josh on the show when late lineups happen and all hell breaks loose. So,
glad you do, my man. I'm glad you do. I hate it.
I had a great day on Friday. So I don't know if it's the pigtails or all the news and our panic, but
should have went back to the pigtails, man. It was a great decision.
I thought about it. Where I was like, am I messing up my juju? But I felt like I'll see if it's a no hat thing. And then if I have a bad day today, then I'll know it's that I just the pigtails were good luck.
Yeah, and either way, I'm just kidding. Don't ever do that again.
I will prepare for maybe Friday pigtail day with the chubster.
I'm off on Fridays now.
Oh, are you?
No,
okay.
no. I was hoping that would deter you from doing it.
I thought with all of our schedule machinations that perhaps things would change for you, but
no. I was just trying to get you to never do that again.
Pigtail Fridays. Like we even look at each other during the show anyway.
I might have to turn my camera off for that one. Just
you're such a dick.
Lack of association.
Apparently Jordan Bone is inactive, according to Rod Beard. Of course, a guy who did a show with us last year talking about the Pistons. But apparently Jordan Bone is inactive.
Yeah, that's no longer relevant now that Thon McCurr is starting.
Yep. Shout out to the super chats, by the way. Did get a super chat from somebody earlier commenting on my hair, and also somebody right now from Anthony Ruiz saying Josh the Slate Breaker. So I guess you're the Slate Breaker. That's your new nickname.
Or that's a question, and they didn't do it very well.
It says Josh the Slate Breaker LOL.
Ah, okay.
So
that makes sense.
I feel like that's just your nickname. You break slates.
Anthony Ruiz, sorry for getting knocked out.
Probably a different Anthony Ruiz if I had to guess.
I don't know. You might be trolling for DFS tips now.
All right, so let's talk about, I guess, what you're doing with all this money, because we do have a lot of pay up options out there. We talked about the centers, two guys I'm paying up for. I'm a little bit less into paying up for Luka, and it feels kind of crazy just because he, when you have the money, it's always smart to go to Luka. But I don't know, I feel like that happens, and that's kind of the lock-in play. His ownership is stabilized at around 25%. Overall on DraftKings, I think that feels about right. I'm closer to 20. What are you doing with Luka, or are you paying up in a different direction with all the money you're saving today?
I was neutral to the field. Okay, so I had like 80% on FanDuel, and I expect that to continue. Very different discussion there. I was neutral to the field on DraftKings for Luka. Towns was the guy that I was paying up to most.
Okay. Yeah. Towns to me is the guy I prefer the most as well. Though Drummond averaging 61 fantasy points against Cleveland this year, 3 games they've played. I just felt like they've played 700 times this year, which, a little bit less than that, but they have played 3 times since the last meeting for them in the regular season.
699.
Yeah. So yeah, right. 699 times they played. Literally every game both teams have played, plus several hundred more have been against each other. But yeah, Drummond and Towns to me are the guys I'm paying up for more. Are you paying up for Luka a lot? Is that something you want to do, or are you also feeling like he's just going to be very highly owned because people don't know where to spend their money?
I'm going to have like 30% is my expectation on DraftKings, and I figure I'll have like 80 on FanDuel.
Okay. Seems fair.
Yeah. It's I'm Team Luka today, faux show.
Take a walk, JIT. Think you don't need to spam stupid hair questions. We're doing basketball content. I know my locks are always the thing we want to talk about, but
we just got an ownership update.
Oh, okay.
7 seconds ago per my refresh.
All right, let me get that in. I guess where else on the slate should we even hit on? We talked about most of the main injury items. I guess Utah side, we didn't talk about it much depth, and that probably is worth kind of closing the loop on. Utah does play pretty deep into blowouts at home. And, some of these guys are going to have pretty big upside. Rudy Gobert really should have really big upside, kind of at a tough price on DraftKings. But, you mentioned him as being one of your guys on FanDuel. Mitchell as well, even if there were a blowout, Mitchell and Bojan Bogdanovic, you would think, would spike some upside for there as well. Even if the game just gets completely out of hand, those guys are going to be the ones doing a lot of the scoring. Even Jordan Clarkson off the bench, I really don't mind him at a reasonable price point on DraftKings. Are you comfortable with anybody on Utah at much depth, or are you just kind of playing a little bit as they come?
So on FanDuel, I like them a lot more than I do on DK. I'll probably get to a decent chunk of Gobert and Mitchell, and to a lesser extent Bojan. On DraftKings, they all look just kind of comparable, only at different price ranges. So I'm expecting 10% of like most of these guys.
Okay, that seems fair. What else have we not touched on? I guess we've covered the Pistons side. Anybody else on the slate that we haven't hit on, or any games? Like, we're still waiting on the Miami news, which I feel like is going to determine a lot of the interest levels that we would have there. But anybody else that we haven't hit on yet that you feel like is a very important part of lineups that you're building today?
Let me look back at DK. Ruder, Towns, Butler. No, not really. Thad Young was looking like a darling this morning, and that's gone away. I think that he's still perfectly viable. I'll have, I don't know, 20-ish% of him. Something in that neighborhood. Trying to figure out if I really want as much DeJounte Murray as I got before. I feel like 28 is not totally necessary. But at the same time, this is a hell of a matchup.
How are you feeling about Zach LaVine today? Because we talked about this, I think, like maybe months ago, where one of my pet theories, which has worked out pretty well, fortunately, usually not on slates I'm playing, but for Zach LaVine, slower games against bad defenses have been better for him than pace-up games against bad defenses for whatever reason. I don't know if it's something Zach does in his own style. I've figured out while watching the games, and I just simply can't figure it out. But this matchup against San Antonio, I mean, he just went off for 72 fantasy points with 45% usage against Cleveland. San Antonio, a little more competent defensively, but on paper, just still a 110 defensive rating, so not good defensively. Probably a little bit weaker defensively without Aldridge in there as well, though I guess you could argue that Pirtle may be an upgrade defending the rim. But LaVine, really awkward price tag on DraftKings where he's still going to be decently owned. FanDuel, maybe not quite as awkward of a price tag, but any interest in him on either site today?
On my last crunch, I had 17% on DraftKings. We're projecting 12. I had 22% on FanDuel. We were projecting 22. So I am just holding hands with the field on Zach LaVine today.
I'm kind of surprised you got that much given his price jump, because I feel like you are not a known Zach LaVine fan.
He's just their entire team right now. I'm not particularly fond of him. There's just nowhere else to spend that money.
Yeah, I agree. Awkward price point, and certainly some different ways. That I don't know. Certainly some different ways you could spend your money, but I do think LaVine at his price, he's up to now 16% projected ownership on DraftKings in our most recent one, which again you do get with that promo code Live Before Lock or the promo code LIV if you want to get that 30 days for $54 right now in honor of Super Bowl 54. Use that right now at awesemo.com/join. But yeah, LaVine, I think an interesting play. I thought I would be like above the field by going to 15%, and now I'm a little bit under it in the most recent run of ownership, which is surprising to me. But 45% usage rate is nothing to sneeze at.
No, not at all.
All right.
Dude will certainly use the ball, that's for sure.
A Rinpack pointing out LaVine gunning for an all-star bid. That's certainly something for him that could be interesting, I guess. I don't think he deserves it by any stretch, but sure.
Certainly doesn't. Probably deserves it more than Trae Young.
Let's see. Luka Doncic will play today. Don't think that's a concern. Willie Cauley-Stein available to make his Mavs debut. Doesn't seem like that's something worthwhile either. We got some questions here. I guess we should do the general one, which a couple people asked while we were talking about it earlier. How many Rockets do you say it's too many Rockets? And let's say for both tournaments and for cash separately.
Oh, 4?
For both or for cash?
I mean, for cash, well, both sites are different because obviously Eric Gordon changes things on FanDuel. So if you're playing a cash game on FanDuel, I see no problem having one of Rivers and Clemens, Gordon, and Hartenstein. So there's 3. If you end up with anybody else, I don't really see it as a problem, but I think those would probably be it. So, 3 feels about right on FanDuel. On DraftKings, you're definitely ending up with Hartenstein. I think that Rivers would be comparable there. So 3 feels about right. I don't think that I would want a lot of lineups that had 4. I'm going to have lineups that have 4 for sure.
Yeah, I would say for me, just the one guy that jumps out is Hartenstein's really the one cash-wise on DraftKings that I'm okay with. And we talked about the reasons why earlier, but it's hard for me to see how he completely submarines you, just how productive he is per minute and his ability to score and get some rebounds and stuff. Clemens, I would have a harder time playing in cash, but I think the price is there. But I feel like in cash, I'd be more inclined for 2 Rockets and then be willing to go a little more for tournaments, but with different groupings, for DK at least. I'm not paying Eric Gordon's price in cash today, I would say on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, that would be one of the must-haves, I would think.
I have 4 Rockets in what I believe is my optimal on FanDuel.
Yep. Okay. That seems fair.
We'll see.
Let's keep going through these questions here. Why do the minutes projections constantly change on Fantasy Cruncher? Example, Kobe White from 24.75 to 26, back to 24.75. You should use Awesemo's minutes projections, first of all, because that's what I use. That's why whenever we're waiting for an update on things, that's one of the things there. But I don't know why Fantasy Cruncher does that, but they change things and refresh things on their own back end as well. So I can't really testify to them. You have any idea on why that would be?
No idea. I've never looked at it.
Yeah. Yeah. On Awesemo's, on our stat lines page, or on the, I forget what they call it now because I think we changed the name for it. On the projected stats page on our Awesemo projections, that's where Alex's minutes projections are. And he also updates them as he goes. And sometimes it could be new information.
Jimmy Butler starting.
Okay, there we go. So Jimmy Butler starting, what does that do for you now? Is Dragic still in play for you? Harrow, is he still an option for you? What are the Heat now that are appealing to you? And a game that's still pretty tough against Orlando.
To me, it's Butler and Bam with a small amount of Dragic. That's really all where I need to be. Tyler Hero is already priced up to 5K on DraftKings, so that's going to be a real tough sell. So I only liked Bam and Butler before the day started. I basically feel the same way right now, although if I end up with 5% of Dragic, oh my god, I'm trying to say it correctly, Dragic, then I'm totally okay with that on FanDuel at 5K. I don't expect him to be in a lot of my stuff.
Ajdin Begovic asking, talk about Tristan Thompson in the premium Slack. A guy who's lost some closing minutes recently to Larry Nance, but you would think would be in there more for Drummond. I was into him a little bit earlier today just as a concept, but with all the value out there, I think it's easier to either go down at center to a guy like Pirtle or to go up to the Drummond Towns here that we've talked a lot about. How are you feeling about Tristan Thompson today, given the fact that he should theoretically see a little more run than he's had in recent games, but his price is down enough to be playable?
I actually have 2x the field on him on DK on my last run. So I had 16. On FanDuel, I only have 6. Basically, all of my FanDuel center exposure is going to Drummond, Towns, Gobert, and Vooch. Really hard for me to want to go any other direction when I have infinite money. So I'm paying for the studs and hoping one of them breaks it.
Could you play Gordon and Rivers in cash on SuperDraft? Is an interesting question. Let me see.
I can kind of give that answer in a really
Gordon
good
looks
way.
like one of the most important plays on SuperDraft today. So in terms of a projection base, he's a 1.8x multiplier. The run is there. He's actually Awesemo's top projected SuperDraft play. So I would say, yeah. And then Rivers also a top 4 projected guy, top 5 projected guy. So I would think you can.
I have Rivers as my 5th best option on SuperDraft, and Eric Gordon is first. So there's no reason you can't play those guys together.
Yeah, Awesemo has Rivers at 4 and Gordon at 1, and Harkenstein too. So again, if you were playing cash on SuperDraft, I think those 3 would all be very much in play there. Yeah. C. Lander asking Bruce Brown or DeJounte Murray for a DK single entry. I would definitely go Bruce Brown's way now that we know about Derrick Rose being out.
I assume my answer is going to be Bruce Brown. We will find out momentarily. I just finished my DraftKings crunch, so I can give a real answer in a couple seconds. I also just finished my FanDuel crunch, I believe. 975. Nope, that one's still ticking. Okay. So on DraftKings, my assumption is going to be Bruce Brown. Let's refresh. And let's refresh. Okay, good to go. Yes, I have quite a bit of Bruce Brown now. So the answer is Bruce Brown.
Okay. Yeah. Bruce Brown, Murray going to gain a little bit, but he's also just keeps losing minutes to Derek White, which in a way where White's been really more productive with his minutes too. And as Josh talked about earlier, just the chance of getting popped is much higher for any Spur than it is for a guy like Bruce Brown, who's got to get minutes and look pretty healthy in his return to the lineup last game. Morgan Smith asking, we can play Rivers and Clemens on DK, right? Morgan Smith asks, how do you feel about that? I don't mind it because they're so cheap. I think it's fine, but I don't think it's an optimal tournament play. But how do you feel about that?
I was just actually thinking about that for myself. I feel like I should have a max 2 of Rivers, Gordon, Clemens. But with Clemens being 3K, I'm not sure that it matters, especially on a 6-game slate. So I'm not doing anything to dissuade that.
Okay.
But no, it was literally like I spent a couple seconds before I ran that last crunch thinking, do I need to set these groups? Ultimately, yeah. I did not set those groups.
No, I agree. I think the prices are low enough where it might not be an issue. I would say if you're doing it a lot, like if you're getting that a lot, I might be more inclined to move away from them for both of them in a group. But yeah, it's not a huge issue because of the prices, but I would err on the side of not having those two together. I'd be more inclined to play like Rivers and Gordon together personally, but on DK, but I don't, I really am not bullish on Rivers in a meaningful way. Whereas Clemens, I'd rather just take the stabs at and hope he gets some kind of extended run somehow.
Well, I'm going to get Ben over on this one tonight because I kind of like my exposures as of right now. So that's usually a sign where I get back 10% of the money that I put in.
Fingers crossed for old Josh today. If only I had pigtails on, you would have crushed it. But now we'll never know.
I did not crush it Friday. So you can take your pigtails and stick them where the sun don't shine.
I'm surprised you didn't crush it on Friday. I had like a really good day. And I was like, oh, I bet Josh had a good day because I thought we were mostly in concert.
I don't think I did.
Assume.
I think I got. All right, fair enough. I think I got brutalized. I also don't remember the slate already. So,
I didn't play over the weekend, so it's fresh in my mind, and I was coming in with positive energy, and then then things happen in life. Dadler asking Jimmy Butler or DeMar in a FanDuel single entry. You're playing on FanDuel. How would you favor Butler or DeMar?
I have significantly more DeMar, so DeMar is the answer for me. I feel a little underrepresented actually on Jimmy Butler right now because I tried to knock him back a little bit to not get a lot. Now that we have him, I probably feel a little light, so I am going to try to bump that up just a little bit. Ooh, that'll work actually. Maybe a little bit less than that. I love when I see something and I'm just like, yeah, no.
I feel like ownership wise, I might be more inclined to go to Butler because I'm sure his ownership isn't going to pick up enough for FanDuel. But
no, FanDuel will be a tough one.
That was what he asked. It was FanDuel single entry.
Right. But like his ownership is going to struggle to like climb big time with him being ruled in.
Yeah. So I think I would go Butler's way, but on DraftKings, I have a lot more DeMar. So, that's sort of how I'd view it. But
I mean, either way, I greatly prefer DeMar. So
really? Okay.
I'm just trying to think about if I want Butler. Facing the Magic is not a fun task.
No, it's not. But those are the kind of games where Jimmy can grind it out, half court style games where the other guys are going to have a tougher time scoring, and no none out there going to get the ball in his hands a little bit more than he would otherwise. And
yeah, but like 23, 6, and 6 is just like, okay, that's fine. I have a hard time seeing him going for like 40 today. Maybe. Like real points. Could be wrong.
Yeah,
he might. I don't know what his relationship is to Kobe.
That is a thing to consider with some of the stuff. You can't really quantify it. So, as we talked about, not on, but if he wants to go nuts, he can certainly go nuts.
Lineups are in.
There you go. All right. And then no news, nothing yet on the Rockets. So we don't fully know anything with them. Bruce Brown or Thad Young, a better play in a DK GPP? For me, that would be Bruce Brown right now.
Bruce Brown.
That's a perfectly fine play. And again, as Josh mentioned earlier, a guy who looked really good earlier today. Now, I don't know that I would want to get there or need to get there as much. And that's sort of where I'd rather have Bruce Brown. I think he's got a lot more upside, especially no Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose just been a usage monster in that lineup. And now he's gone. Let's see.
He's out, D Rose.
Hopefully he's okay. I feel like I'd be bummed if he has like lingering knee issues now because they played him too long in one game and on a back-to-back.
I think he has lingering knee issues regardless.
True. But he was like looking good and spry, and then you just pushed the minutes limit one day. And I'm sure he also probably wanted to play because he's a competitor, but just kind of sucks. All
right, Chris Clemens, you and me, we need to have a good day today.
What are your final numbers on Chris Clemens?
67 on DraftKings, 30 on FanDuel.
Okay. Look, he's been a great per minute guy. You can't argue that.
I just keep going back to that game where Harden, Westbrook, and Capella sat. I know that Gordon played less minutes, but they also played Gary Clark 30 minutes. That gentleman is no longer with the Rockets. He's on the Magic. I think the minutes are there for him to be able to do something similar to that again. So I'm just going to assume, like, if I'm giving him 25 minutes and I'm getting this much of him, the chances of him playing north of 25 minutes are probably like 50-50. And every minute above that is just like even more okay with me. And I think that he plays, mid-20s no matter what. So it's tricky. If he plays 30 minutes, whether he plays well or not, I'm going to be stoked.
Why is Schroeder going underlooked? Keegster asks in the premium Slack.
No idea.
Yeah, I made sure to get him in there once we knew that Paul was out. We talked about him earlier. I think he's really appealing, but yeah.
I have 40% right now. We're projecting him at 15.
Who is this we talked about the other day too? Where it was Harrow. Where it's like sometimes when all these things move, the ownership just doesn't go to one guy, and that could be it. Where people just aren't valuing the thing with Paul. Also, if you go to NBA Wowie, it doesn't jump off the page because again, he's still usually sharing minutes with Shea. But yeah, that's to me would be the reasons why I would think he's not popping. Let's see,
dude.
Johnny Sack asking.
I forgot we're going for another half hour.
Yeah, no, thank God. Yeah, they asked us like, "Hey, can you guys do another half hour?" We're like, "Of course, we'd love to do another half hour. That's what we're known for."
I'm excited. I got my stuff prepped today, man. Office hours, premium feature for Awesemo.com. I did an hour and 15 minutes on SuperDraft process from scratch. I'd never done it before. We'll be talking about it in 40 seconds. 45
Johnny Sack asking, why is Jacob not even in FanDuel ownership? He's at 5%, Johnny. He's down to the bottom. So he went down a little bit in the most recent run.
You keep calling him Jacob. I'm going to lose my mind.
Wait, who?
Jacob.
Jakob, sorry. He says, why is Jakob not even in FanDuel ownership? Like, because I'm seeing it a first name, I'm reading it as Jacob. I call him Jakob. That's unfair. I won't take that slander. I call him Jakob.
You need to go back to the start of this show and play it.
Jacob Pirtle. Yeah, man. I guess he might be another one I go back and forth on. I guess I feel like you say the names over and over again. I hate repeating myself. It's one of my least
I'm in no
things.
position. I screw up most of these.
I think I just switch it up for variety's sake. Sometimes I want to give him the right pronunciation. Sometimes I want to have a little fun with it and call him a more American version.
There you go.
All right, we are locked now. So guys, hit that like button if you can. If you're jumping off right now, if you want to play SuperDraft, again, a 7:30 p.m. East Coast time slate. So you can do that with us right now. Should we do a quick round of daddy likes or should we just get right into SuperDraft stuff?
I'm not daddy.
You don't want to be in a daddy mode?
Who plays? Pistons, Cavs? No, I'm good. I don't need to see how Darius Garland is 3% owned on DraftKings. I'm fine.
I'm curious to see what Bruce Brown got to, but
I mean, like, feel free to pull it up, but I don't need to play like a guessing game here.
No, that's fair. Well, we don't do the guessing game. I don't do the guessing game now because when Brick called us out for it, that Brick 75, one of our on the contrary guests is also a top 10 DFS player in the world. I was just like, I just been doing the listing it off thing. So the guessing game part of it usually not the most fun. I'll take a look real fast. Let's see if there's anybody good jumping out in the fadeaway on DK today. And then we'll do SuperDraft convo. Again, hit that like button, guys. Oh boy, Andre Drummond is 50% owned.
Oh boy,
that is undershot that one. I guess a lot of people thought my Drummond Towns lineup sounded good, and I agreed.
I have 38. At least I'm keeping pace, I guess. What's Bruce Brown at?
Bruce Brown is at 14, but Reggie Jackson is at 28. Oh, I don't like that play as much now.
Reggie Jackson is at 28. I have 5.
Yeah, I was at 15 and I didn't change it during the show because I was like, this is good enough. I'll be at least with the field. Maybe a little bit above it. And nope, he's at 28%. So.
Now I'm not happy about having 5.
Yeah, Bruce Brown, I'm also with the field on 14. I got to 15, so I feel good about that. Would have liked to have been more, but just hard to do on these shows. Kevin Love, 10. Larry Nance, 6. Tristan Thompson, under 5. Thon McCurr down at 1.3. Derrick Rose, 1.2. So holy crap, a lot of people played themselves today.
A lot of people paid the rake.
What are they doing? What's going on for those people? That was a good 20-minute, 30-minute lead time.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to run a SuperDraft crunch.
Interesting. Well, yeah, hopefully you guys didn't play Derrick Rose because that's a lot of Derrick Rose.
Because Derrick Rose didn't play Derrick Rose today.
Probably not. Well, that'd be insider trading for him. He couldn't do that. All right, let's do the SuperDraft stuff. Hit the like button, guys. Again, if you want to play SuperDraft with us right now, do it. Go to superdraft.io or download SuperDraft on the App Store. When you sign up for your account, use the promo code Awesemo. This is very important. This is the most simple way to do it. I think there may be some workarounds. But if you do the sign up code or the promo code rather when you sign up, it'll give you that $20 the second you sign up and deposit. So go do it right now. Superdraft.io. Download SuperDraft on the App Store. Do it along with us. You want to we could build a lineup on the show. Maybe that'll be the thing we do. We'll do a full lineup at the end that people can poach.
I'm gonna run some crunches and see what we get.
And win millions. No, I don't even know what the tournaments are, but probably not.
I think
millions. Win a lot of money.
1750 or something pays out for today's, like 15K guaranteed or something.
Yeah, it's a good deal. So go do it right now and play along with us if you want to do that. And we'll take you through it. And of course, if you want to jump off right now and just use the data we have for the rest of the slates later today, the night slates, and all the content coming tomorrow, use the promo code LIV for Super Bowl LIV, Super Bowl 54. Use that promo code LIV right now at awesemo.com/join. Get yourself 30 days of all of our data across every single sport, all the tools that Awesemo has lovingly crafted with love, with actual love. He stirs it up together in a large cauldron, puts it together. All of a sudden, data comes out, but only if you use the power of love. And he's done that for you with all the tools we have right now: PGA, NHL, NFL, NBA, MMA, everything that's in sport right now, in season right now. Get that data for $54 for 30 days. Super Bowl with the promo code LIV and on our Super Bowl LIV. All right.
I'm running a super draft crunch. I have a 45-person player pool, and I'm not setting any exposure caps. 100%, 70% randomness. Lego.
So I guess before we get into all of it, because SuperDraft is a new site, and I mean, that's sort of the appeal of it. You know, they position themselves, and we've obviously read the promo codes or the promo reads rather. That's the future of DFS. And what they really are trying to do over there is give you unlimited lineup freedom. You can play any player you want. They say it's a dream team, but literally, if you think that Towns, Drummond, Luka, if you think all those guys are going to smash today and it's not even going to be close, that is something you can do right now at SuperDraft. That's the advantage. All the things we talk about salary-wise, it's a part of the process because of the multiplier effect on SuperDraft. More than anything, it's just about if you want to play guys and you think that Jacob Poeltl's not as appealing as Andre Drummond, and even if they have vastly different multipliers, you can do that. So that's sort of the main thing. If you want to jump in there, that is a reason why. You just have to think about it a little bit less. But as Josh is showing you on his sheet, there are still projections, obviously, that come from it. Using your baseline projection times multiplied by the multiplier seems like the way that would work. Any wrinkles you think are important to bring to the people if they're making their first lineup on SuperDraft today?
So one of the things that we looked into during office hours, that's still something that I need to expound on quite a bit, was trying to figure out...
Harden officially ruled out, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that before, and it almost gave me a heart attack. I saw chat say it, and I was like, come on now! And I was like, oh, I've assumed he's been out the entire time. You normally... Like, those are the things where it's just not fun. Anyway, so what we did during my stream was try to figure out what the normal winning score is relative to... I used Fantasy Cruncher's baseline projection since they're just in lineup rewind for all of the old slates, trying to find out how much higher the winning score of a contest is from the optimal lineup. And it looked like it was going to be like an additional 20% on top of whatever you got for the optimal. So let's just say that you ran your optimal and you got 300. You would assume then you want to multiply that by 1.2. So you're assuming you need 360 to win that contest. Now, these numbers are not nearly high enough in this case. I will use the optimal that I have right now just to actually show this on the screen. So if I look into... I ran 500. I crunched out 500 lineups using these settings. And if I just sort these by my projection, the actual top score is 400.5. So if I take 400.5 times 1.2, I get 480. So there are 7 roster spots, 3 guards, 3 forwards, and a center. That means that I need roughly 70 fantasy points from each spot to be where we would think the winning score would be. I think that is valuable information because then you need to figure out how often do you think a guy will score 70 fantasy points, even given the multiplier. So you can do that a bunch of different ways. I don't believe that we have boom bust tool for SuperDraft, or do we?
I don't believe we... Let me see. I'll take a look while you talk.
Don't
believe so, though.
What I need to say is, okay, so we don't have a boom bust tool for SuperDraft as of yet. Yeah. But it is something that you kind of want to learn how to do on your own until we have something like that. You want to know how often these guys can hit 70 fantasy points. It's not particularly likely. I had a player pool of everybody that I had projected for a single minute today. So that's 99 guys. I cut out of that pool... How many did I say?
You had 40, I think.
Yeah, I took 55 of those guys out of that pool and cut that all the way down. So it left 44. Based on the math of this, what I see is that of the 55 guys that I took out, there is a 9% chance that one or more of those guys score 70 today. That seems low enough for me that I felt like I'm okay drawing that line in the sand. But that is what you need to do first and foremost, in my opinion, is figure out what you actually need and then try to figure out what guys can actually get there. It's way lower than you think. Now, playing a cash game, this is going to be a completely different story. But if you're trying to win their main GPP, which is really what we're going to be talking about here, the first thing you want to do is know what you need.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so you said 70 would be your target score for him?
Correct. 70 would be my target score for every single player. Since there are no salaries, everybody needs the same thing, essentially.
And that's too why we talked about earlier with the SuperDraft cash games. I mean, for Eric Gordon, he literally, according to Awesemo's projections, projects for 70 fantasy points on SuperDraft with the multiplier. So for a cash game being that close, certainly going to be a guy you would want. How are you running like Monte Carlo simulations? Like how are you just eyeballing it with floor to ceiling? Like how are you looking with standard deviations? How are you running these things to get a read on it?
So projections and standard deviations, you know what you have a guy projected for, you know what a standard deviation can be, and you know what the target is. So it's basically a normal distribution around a projection, that's standard deviation, and with the goal of 70. So that's what I did to set up all of the target scores. You can see all of that in the office hours if you sign up at awesemo.com.
Yeah, that promo code LIV or the promo code Live Before Lock for half off your first week. You can see Josh's video on there. You do these every Monday, right?
Every Monday.
Yeah. So Josh went in depth there. So check it out. Again, if you're trying to play here, we really do advocate for it. And obviously SuperDraft is a partner of ours. That is an important part of what we do to keep the lights on the channel. It's promoting some of these providers out there. But, the biggest advantage you have is the overlay in these tournaments, the fact that people used by it, the fact that people don't have a process like Josh has outlined. A lot of people will just lock in Towns and Drummond and all that. And that's part of the appeal, but it is also not the best, GPP approach, especially for some of the tournaments on there. So that is certainly a thing to consider. And again, as I mentioned earlier, our projections for SuperDraft today are free. Let me see if I could just get that link real fast. Where'd you go? We'll drop it in the YouTube chat right now. But if you want to play today along with us, you can do that. Again, go sign up right now. But let me go. El Negro Loco apparently leaving us right now, but the rest of you should be staying and literally looking at these projections and just make some money today, because it's going to be very easy with these projections to find your way to some of the tournaments out there.
That is very true.
So I guess let's talk about the minutia then, because we do have one game that's not going to be available on the slate that's going on right now. As we talked about, that Pistons game won't be a part of it. But for a lineup today on SuperDraft, who do you feel like are the plays that jump out the most to you? Because Eric Gordon, obviously 1.8x multiplier, not accounting for the situation for him. But who else is a guy that you need? Because to me, just looking at the projections, it seems like a very heavy Rockets slate there. And you kind of have to pick and choose the ones you're going to want for tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can put a maximum of 36 lineups into their main contest. So what I'm going to do is take the 36 lineups that I've created. I've generated 500 in Fantasy Draft. I'm taking my top 36 to get an idea of where my exposures are, so we can talk about who really looks the best. And for right now, I have Eric Gordon in 89% of those lineups, Hartenstein in 78% of those lineups. Gordon has a 1.8x multiplier. Hartenstein has a 1.95. So you're getting sort of the equivalent of having a low salary, but I have Hartenstein projected for 30 fantasy points. That's 58.9 after you hit him with the multiplier. Changes the game up completely. Actually has the second highest projection of anybody here except for Eric Gordon. I got to 58% Schroeder, 50% De'Aaron Fox, 44% Austin Rivers, 36% Bielitsa. This is one of those situations where it's going to follow whatever your projections are pretty closely. The difference being there's only one center spot. 3 guards, 3 forwards, 1 center. And there's not a lot of dual eligibility. Eric Gordon, Kristaps Porzingis, Chandler Hutchinson, Kent Bazemore, Willie Cauley-Stein, Mike Muscala. Not a lot of these guys are getting, not a lot of guys that you want to play. are getting dual ownership. So it's pretty much just straight positions, at least as of now. So even if you have guys at center ranking pretty highly, Towns, Vooch, Gobert, I have all of these guys ranking pretty similarly. You can only get so much of them because you end up having a lot of centers that just look really similar.
Right.
It would be good to have a second, maybe a utility spot would open things up a little bit. SuperDraft, maybe.
Hey, we got some stroke with SuperDraft, so maybe they can hear that out. I guess I'm looking at the points breakdown just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Which site do you feel like? Because to me, just looking through this, it does seem like kind of a combination of I guess the better parts of FanDuel rules and some of the better parts of DK rules. Yeah, in terms of the actual scoring.
Yeah, so much like DraftKings, they give you the extra half point for any 3-pointer made. Like FanDuel, all turnovers are -1. And then similar to DraftKings, they give out bonuses for double-doubles and triple-doubles, but it's the same bonus for both. And you don't really need to pay attention to those all that much.
And the blocks and steals get 3 points each, so that's a little bit more close to FanDuel as well. So yeah, the block steal turnover thing seem like they're the closest to FanDuel. So in terms of, if you were projecting or making your own projections for it, that's one thing that would be worth a look at. But yeah, I think it seems mostly like in line with anything you would expect, but I think that was just worth pointing out real fast.
IMAX in chat. Drummond isn't listed on the for draft projections. The Pistons Cavs game is not a part of the main slate on SuperDraft. So
because of this show specifically, they wanted to give us a half hour. So the Cleveland Detroit game is not part of their slate today. So that is one reason why today you can't go there for their main slate.
And you should not be brokenhearted about that.
In future days, it'll be the same slate time as always, but we wanted to make sure to give them an extra half hour here to talk about it because, like a new site can be daunting in SuperDraft. When you are doing something different like they are, it can be particularly scary for people to jump in and wade into the deep waters. But that is sort of the time where you can actually make the most money on these sites with less competition. Rinpack, one of our guys who you've probably seen on these streams with Eddie before, does a great job for us behind the scenes and also just a great DFS player. Pointed out one of our guys, Brick, who we talked about earlier. Brick's been making a killing on SuperDraft because he's very DFS, and not that you have to be Brick, but it's just a very logical way to go over there and behooves you to figure it out yourself because now is the time where you can really clean up and make money off people who are just, as Josh mentioned, playing the star centers when maybe with the way that the multipliers work, it ends up being pretty close to a wash for some of them.
Yeah, and it looks like the 12,000, like their main contest today was a 12,500 guaranteed. It's called the Jump Shot. $12 to get in, 1750 to first. It is filled as of right now. So kudos to you guys for pushing that one to the top.
Hey, thanks, Josh. I appreciate it. I'm glad I could do it for all of us.
Good work.
No, but we do appreciate SuperDraft. So again, go check them out right now. I guess there's other tournaments going on, even if you can't get into the main one, but we do have 15 minutes left there. So I guess in terms of must plays, you mentioned some of your ownership for the Houston guys, but is there anybody else you're finding to be a must play because either they have a really great multiplier or combination? Because for me, De'Aaron Fox would be one guy I would want to take a stab at. Multiplier, not that great on him, but a pretty strong projection from Awesemo. I'm intrigued by his matchup. We didn't talk about him actually for the main slate, but him going against Minnesota with Bogdanovic in that starting lineup at a 41% usage rate, and the game kind of got weird because the starters got benched in the second half because they blew a lead really fast. But Fox would be a guy I find really intriguing. Who do you find popping up a lot more besides the kind of obvious Houston guys who are the SuperDraft equivalent of basically minimum salaries where they're getting almost a 2x multiplier?
Yeah, so this is the order of exposure for my top 36 guys, or for the 36 lineups that I would have.
Read every single one, please.
Well, no, yeah. So Gordon, Hartenstein, Schroeder, Fox, Rivers, Bielitsa. It's got a 1.65 multiplier. Clemens, DeRozan, Butler, SGA, Bam. That's everybody that I have in 20% or more of the lineups.
Is there anybody, and obviously, we all play DFS. We're all used to the salary structure. So on SuperDraft, the equivalent of being a minimum price play would be being a 2x multiplier play. And there's one guy here I would be really intrigued by at a 2x multiplier, Dwayne Dedmon, for the same reasons as Fox. Got foul trouble for him last game, as well as just getting benched in that second half, along with all the starters. At a 2x multiplier for him, I'm intrigued by him going against Minnesota, where you would think they need his size to be in there a little bit more. Is he the only guy at 2x you would play, or is there anybody else you find to be a really interesting value at 2x?
I got Luke Cornett as well. at 2x.
Oh, yeah.
But Dwayne Dedmon is actually in my top lineup of all 500. It is Eric Gordon, Austin Rivers, Fox, DeRozan, Bielitsa, Hartenstein, Dedmon.
Yeah, these are all guys I really like today, which I think is sort of, I know we're like kind of vacillating between half shill, half whatever, but like that is sort of the appeal where on DraftKings, it really was hard to get to a line of construction that included a lot of these guys. On SuperDraft, you can find your ways to that. And yeah, like all those guys I like quite a bit. Fox, DeRozan, Schroeder getting the boost with no Chris Paul. I think these are all really interesting plays today on SuperDraft and ones that maybe you didn't get enough of on your sites. Could also be a good way to hedge too if you didn't get enough exposure on DraftKings or FanDuel for some of these guys.
Yeah, I just saw the question from Rinpack. Is it crucial to get center right on SuperDraft? It feels like it is, but I also think that there are multiple right answers. I know that sounds like a preposterous thing to say. Because there are going to be so many centers and a lot of them are going to have such high multipliers. Like if somebody breaks free, if some center is 15 to 20 points higher than the rest of them, then yes, it's going to be pretty crucial to get that right. But ultimately, given the way that they're congregated, like I've got Towns at 57, Vooch at 55, Gobert at 53, Dedmon at 52, Jake Puddle at 50. Because of the way that the multipliers are set up, I think that everybody's going to be packed together pretty well. So I assume that will also lead to a couple guys breaking free from the pack. I don't necessarily think you have to hit the nuts, but you probably need one of those top two guys.
Yeah, Rinpack pointing out in the premium Slack right now, yesterday the two highest owned centers were Ayton and Collins. Ayton ended up outscoring Collins by 34 super draft points. So
you're going to need Ayton.
Pretty wide margin. Yeah. Also, again, we talked about Brick, a guy just very smart about the DFS game, taking advantage of it. He points out another great feature of SuperDraft is late swap is super easy with no salaries. It is a problem in all stacking sports, but that's a really good point. Late swap there. I mean, if you were waiting on, let's say, James Harden, and we knew that Harden was like questionable, maybe closer to playing than he was today, you could have Chris Clemens in there and you could actually swap to James Harden, which would be a great asset on most sites, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. Thanks for pointing that out, Brick.
Yeah, Brick a star. I mean, like honestly, look, when the pro players are doing stuff like this, taking advantage of the deals, it behooves you. And I've used that word too many times on the show, but it really does. That's when you have to take advantage of it. Like if smarter players than you, and there's no shame in acknowledging that there are smarter players than me, smarter players than Josh. You got to follow that. And this is where the one advantage with SuperDraft is. Anybody you feel like who's going to be low owned that pops up to you as being particularly worthwhile? I know, we don't have ownership for SuperDraft. Right?
We do not have one. Reggie
Jackson
so we don't with 3 points, an assist, and a steal so far. That's fun.
Anybody jumping out that you have a gut instinct, maybe lower owned, that people might be worth taking some dart tosses on today?
I'll be honest, dude. I have no idea how to model this ownership right now. I would expect guys that are popular across FanDuel and DraftKings would naturally be slightly more popular here because they're going, like, everybody's just going to hear the industry talking about those guys, and I don't think it's a 1-to-1 comparison. But like, I would expect Eric Gordon to be very, very highly owned. I would expect Isaiah Hartenstein to be very highly owned. We shall see. I don't really have a feel for where this is. Honestly, I don't know a ton about our ownership process. It wouldn't surprise me if these were easier to model than what we currently have, at least in like the grand scheme of things. Maybe not because we don't have as much data to go on, but this probably could be viable without a ton. It's something that I might actually look into if we're not planning to do it. I might want it on my own.
It's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, a lot of the ownership things as we see whenever Eddie does one of the streams, and he's on the highest level of that in terms of being able just to guess ownership and have a read on it and just basically be able to hold a wet finger in the air and figure out the way the wind is blowing. But I agree. Like, I think to me, like, I would love to play SuperDraft. I talked about it, but like just to hedge on some of the guys that I didn't get to, like Vooch, I have none of today, but he's a 1.3x multiplier here, would be a top projected center play. Karl-Anthony Towns as well. I have a lot of him today. Maybe I'd be less inclined to go there, but I think guys that you maybe don't have as much exposure to on the other sites, that's something we've talked about before. And some of Awesemo's articles as well, and his game plan articles and ones like that, where, if you have a price is just better, like Eric Gordon today, if he's a better price on SuperDraft and FanDuel, but he's not a great price on DraftKings, you don't have him, might make sense to load up on Eric Gordon on the other sites, because that's one way to get your exposure to him. And if he kills you on DraftKings, he won't kill you on SuperDraft, or won't kill you on FanDuel as much.
That mean Jordan? So per SuperDraft, I think that we're going to be seeing a $22,500 guarantee contest tomorrow. So if you didn't get in today, they're going to be running an even bigger contest for tomorrow's slate. Tomorrow's actually bigger than today's slate. So if you're looking to try out SuperDraft, tomorrow would be a really good day to do it. They are going to be running that contest. I'm guessing the first place is going to be maybe 2,500, 2250, something in that neighborhood. It's a pretty nice contest.
Yeah, so tomorrow we have 8 games now with the Lakers game disappearing.
Oh yeah, I forgot we lost one.
So yes, 8 games, so that's a bigger than usual Tuesday slate. So then they really take advantage of it now.
Yeah.
Even if you missed today's big tournament, use that promo code Awesemo to get yourself $20 free with a deposit of $100 or more, and that money will pay for itself in super cash. Also $5K going to first as well. Our guy Tom points out on SuperDraft. So really big. That's a pretty big prize pool for SuperDraft, and that's getting in there now and building your advantage and building your bankroll on SuperDraft is a very smart move. So check that out. It's a very big prize pool by their usual standards, and one befitting all the attention that we're giving them this week.
5K to first, guys. You're all competing for second. I'm coming for first.
Let's see. Nolan Kelly, do you have to have a man bun to play on SuperDraft? Thanks, Nolan, for asking. No, you don't. Anybody can play there, whether you're wearing a backwards hat or a man bun or pigtails. Only things that I wear hair-wise. So that's the one issue. So if you don't have enough hair to pull off a man bun or pigtails, you have to grow it out, I guess. That's the one. No. Of course, SuperDraft is available to everybody. That's what the future of DFS is.
There you go.
Anything else any other plays coming up for you on there, which I guess we can give the people as a nugget? We got 5 minutes left to lock, but we've touched on most of the core points here. And again, really the obvious plays are the Rockets on there. All of these guys are fantastic multiplier values and look really strong, but anybody else you think is worth taking some stabs at? I know we've talked about it, but any Hail Marys for you that you think the people should play a little bit of?
Nothing too weird.
I feel like the two X guys, like the Deadman and Cornette tier, I feel like is the one that jumps out. Lonnie Walker too at 1.95x. I don't mind. I'm taking that stab on DraftKings. I wouldn't mind doing that on SuperDraft.
I would mind doing
that. I wouldn't mind taking that stab a little bit in one of my 36 entries. Or
yeah, I would mind doing that. I don't think that I would get to him in 150, so would not take that stab in 36.
All right. Let's see if we got any questions here.
Yeah,
if you have any questions on SuperDraft right now, I'm checking the YouTube chat as well as our premium Slack. So do it right now. Seems like people are just tilting over Drummond apparently going off right now. Thankfully, Drummond not playing on SuperDraft. So if you've already gotten your ass kicked by Drummond already, then you can go play on SuperDraft right now. And well, I guess not in the big tournament, but there's some other tournaments there. All right.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, happy to answer them.
Yeah, get them in now. We're taking our last look here. Everything else has looks like everything's already filled up. So we are really not much else we can do to promote them today. But if you guys have any questions, drop it in right now. Give you guys 30 seconds to hear this if you guys have any interesting questions about SuperDraft or in general for the late slates, because it seems like we got nothing else news-wise either to hit on. Spurs are starting Pirtle.
That makes sense. The easiest way to make that change.
Yeah, Murray, Forbes, DeRozan, Lyles, Pirtle starting, Bull starting, Satoransky, Dunn, Levine, Young, Cornette. So
the most important piece of that is going to be whether or not he starts the third quarter.
Also, Thon McCurr headed to the locker room.
I thought he was going to be spending the whole damn time in the locker room.
Tough. What a day of highs and lows for old Thon.
That's big for whoever has Markieff Morris, probably.
Charles, I'll just take some silly questions to close this out. Charles P asking if I spill pour White Claw on my bald spot, will a man bun sprout there? I don't know, but I wish we had a sponsorship for one of the many hair care items out there that can, so we can promote that with my lush locks, which I'm growing just to spite other 35-year-olds out there who cannot grow man buns. Take that, other 35-year-olds.
I'm growing some luscious locks, but neither here nor there. You should pour that White Claw on yourself just to see.
Spag's the type of dude to jewel and sip White Claw while watching The Bachelor. I actually do not watch The Bachelor. I only watched one season of The Bachelorette when I was dating a girl who made me watch it. So fun fact.
I've had enough Bachelor at this point.
I just like watching Jade Roper.
Zing.
It's like seeing what she's up to. Can't pull that nonsense on SuperDraft. So
no, she's not up to.
No, well, maybe.
How many people are still here?
You got 1,000.
770. Thanks for sticking around. Guys, 440 likes. If you're still here and you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, do that now.
Yeah, we're close enough to lock in. The tournament's locked, so hopefully you guys covered it. I don't see any great questions here besides one asking me about this.
I see a good one. DA24 in chat. Chicken parm or steak fajitas for dinner? That's easy.
I'm eating healthy today, so I would go steak fajitas, but chicken parm is clearly the more delicious choice.
Yes, chicken parm is significantly better. Skip out on those steak fajitas.
Oh, I ate like a garbage person this weekend, so I need to cut out all carbs today.
I kind of did a boom boom yesterday, man. Basically had 2 dinners. We went to it was called the Soup Bowl. I don't know why they didn't call it the Super Bowl. It was
too close.
Well,
copyright infringement.
SOUP-ER. Anyway, it was a brewery doing a soup tasting. All of their cooks and stuff all brought their own soup, and everybody had to taste it. That was where I found out about Kobe, actually. But
were chilies involved?
No.
Like chili?
No.
Okay. I feel like chili could be involved in a soup.
So there was a pork chili verde, which is a chili analog, but not a traditional red chili.
Okay, that's fair. That's smart. Smart move though, because I feel like then you capture people who aren't that into the soups, but you still get like a soup-like thing.
Italian wedding, some sort of Moroccan lentil joint, basically something that tasted like a liquid chicken enchilada, and whatever we were talking about to start. Oh, the pork chili verde. Anyway, not important. I didn't get those soups because 2 of those soups didn't sound very appealing to me. So I ate loaded tater tots covered in bacon and queso and all the good stuff. So I ate like a glutton there. Stayed there, had a couple extra drinks because the Kobe stuff became fascinating. Ended up at another bar, and then ultimately went to another place for dinner where I had a trio of quesadillas.
What? That's the arterial clogging special for you.
I mean, those were the only things that I ate for the entire day. So it's it's not like I had a big breakfast or anything, but yeah, I had a bit of a boom boom. It was like 2 straight meals while being out.
You had the super draft of eating where you just ate a bunch of different things together and just assumed it would work out fine.
Exactly.
No calorie requirements involved at all.
No,
just pick your food and go.
Didn't matter what the price said. I just cared about the multiplier to my waist.
Well, guys, we appreciate you sticking with us. Hopefully we'll do more of these super draft shows in the future, but either way, take advantage of it. Again, use that promo code Awesemo to get yourself $20 free with a deposit of $100 or more, and that money comes to you right away. $20 in super cash, just as good as real money on there. Play the tournaments. Again, big tournament coming up tomorrow, so get in now. There's a decent chance with how much we're going to promote it tomorrow that it'll probably fill earlier than usual, so go check it out. $5K up top to the winner. So go to superdraft.io, again, and use that promo code Awesemo, or download SuperDraft in the App Store right now. Anything else you want to say before we call it quits?
Yeah, Langston Galloway also heading to the locker room, and the Rockets are starting PJ Tucker against Rudy Gobert.
Well, hopefully Harkenstein gets there on all of our sites today. Oh boy. Well, he'll play the minutes.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to matter all that much, although you certainly wouldn't want to have 80% any longer.
That is fair. Christopher Shue saying, Chris, don't tell me what to do. As a fellow Chris, I can actually make the choice on behalf of all of us. Much like the Council of Ricks and Rick and Morty, I can unilaterally decide. So
there we go.
Now, we're all wearing man buns. We're all playing Super Draft. We appreciate you guys for watching. Tune in tomorrow. I believe it's Fast Eddie Fear and Chris Randone doing the show. So watch those guys taking you up to lock for a bigger than usual Tuesday slate. We appreciate all you guys watching and sticking with us. So hit that like button before you go. We'll be back with you guys in a jiffy. So enjoy your nights.